All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Tilton the Scales. I'm your host, Nathan Logan. I'm here today with my co-hosts, Chet Bowen and Walter Hall. And today we also have a guest on the show, Ross Bays, a fellow that we went to high school with, and we're going to do some catching up and talk to him about some things that he's got going on in his life and what he's been doing. So before we do that, I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and you're still on the track for your New Year's resolutions, and you haven't taken a hard right or a hard left and diverted from that. So, but without further ado, we'll just go around the horn. Just give us give us the synopsis of how your holidays went, and if there's anything you want to share with us. We'll start with Wally.
It was fantastic. My kids are the perfect age of Christmas. So did the usual family thing, running around like maniacs, bouncing around like big bung balls, being grandparents' houses. It was good. Yeah. Had a great time. My best friend came up. He was in the state over for me. Never saw him. But these things happen. What are you going to do? Right. I mean,
I couldn't walk the 3-hour trip. I honestly, it was too cold for me. I'm not going to lie.
It was a great Christmas. I'm just giving you a hard time. It was a great Christmas. It was a Happy New Year.
Chet, how was your holidays?
Same, fantastic. I had two friends. I don't know how we planned it this way, but I had two college buddies come over 2 days before Christmas. We watched football, and that was amazing. I had both kids say independently of each other it was the best Christmas they had, and that's the checkout right there. I mean, come on, let's go.
Well done.
And then everything went well. I'm a little confused about what Wally said. I mean, not to burn any bridges, but I never went to Maine, and he said something about his best friend going to Maine. I didn't go to Maine, so that's cool. But yeah, no, everything else is really good. Everything else is really good.
That's good. That's good. Ross, how was your holidays, man?
Holidays are good. I mean, I had a couple weeks off of work. I was hoping for a little more downtime, but I just have this terrible tendency that once I have downtime, I fill it up with lots of stuff. So the holidays are always a lot with family, get-togethers and stuff as it is, but I tend to just never stop moving. So I start work back up on Monday, and I have been working harder these last 2 weeks than I normally do at work. So I got to try to figure out a way to rest for the next 2 days. And I don't think it's going to happen, but either way, it's the holidays. I'm hoping for some snow, and I don't think we're going to get it.
You don't think so? It's supposed to hit most of the Northeast, I thought.
I mean, I think I just want it too badly. I want to look out the window and for there to be 2 feet of snow on the ground, which I know you guys don't want, but I want that.
Yeah. So you're ruining it for everyone else.
That's right.
Because you want it so bad. That's cool. That's cool. Well, I'm glad you guys had a happy holidays and everything was safe and you got to spend time. It was good. I mean, I was 3 hours away from y'all. Again, part of the reason why I hate flying is I don't want to take I feel bad asking to take my sister's vehicle to go anywhere. And my mom came to us, so I had no reason to ask to take a vehicle. I could have rented a car, sure, but I mean, I didn't even get on. I didn't even get on for our podcast. I mean, I felt bad about that too, but my mom was there. I mean, we were all done, messing around and playing games by 10 o'clock. But I mean, I didn't have anywhere to specifically go because I could have gone down in the basement, but it was cold down there. I'm not going to lie. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to ask them. So my sister's house is it's very nice. Their basement and their garage, they have it's warmed by some sort of, it's the same water heater for the process for the house, and it's all through the foundation, and I could ask them to turn it on, but I honestly didn't want to be that guy, just so I could go downstairs for a couple hours. But I mean, yeah,
I think that's fair to ask in sub-zero weather if they'll turn the heat on for you. I don't feel like that's being a diva at all. You're from Texas, for crying out loud. And hey, it's like, hey, do you mind if I flush the toilet? No, turn the damn heat on.
Well, the heat was on, of course. But again, the hot water, it's a separate system, but the same system. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but again, it's hot water pipes that are throughout the foundation, like the floor
Yeah,
itself.
yeah, that's
It's
exactly
actually
what I'm at right now.
it's actually amazing because at one point it was on and I was walking around the basement in bare feet and it was like a hot
Jeez.
spa. It was like a hot spa. It was pretty phenomenal.
Radiant
Of course,
force. I like that.
yeah, I'd have to ask him what that specific thing is, but it's in the garage and it's also in the basement. So the cars can go in there. The snow will melt off. There's a drainage system.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice. So Timothy,
What's
are
up,
you
man?
forced to be outside? Is that why are you getting the fire going or what?
Hold on, I can't hear you. I'm working on something.
Oh, okay.
Wait.
Just like
Technical
our meetings
issues.
at work.
He's got a cigar in his.
He's got a cigar. I was
in his
thinking,
hand. Yeah.
looks foggy there.
I don't know if you recognize
I-
the other Ross Bays is with us. He's
Hey,
a
buddy.
guest on the show. So
Ross Bays.
yeah.
Now that's a name I haven't heard for a long time.
A long time. A long time.
Yeah. Well,
What's
we're
up,
gonna
Timmy?
catch up with him. Yeah, we're gonna
How you
catch up
doing,
with
Ross?
Hey, buddy.
I watched one of your videos.
I'm sorry.
That Chet sent to me about throwing stuff out the window. That was pretty
That's a
funny.
fantastic
him. Yeah, the
story.
story time was great. Yeah, we're gonna get into that and divulge some of that, and we'll get into his. Maybe he'll give us an impromptu story time.
Ooh, all right.
Something that he remembers one of us by, besides Chet. But who knows?
Oh,
That-
Jesus.
that'll be
Yeah, put him right on the
entertaining.
spot.
No,
And I want him to
no.
be happy.
Well, I'm not asking. I'm just saying maybe he'll bless us with that. But who knows? So yeah, I guess we'll just get right into it. So obviously, Ross Bays, who we went to high school with, Roscoe, as he's known on the interwebs and on YouTube. He's a Marine, an author, content creator. He's got over 160,000 subscribers on YouTube. Is that correct? Or am I?
130,000.
Oh, I apologize. I mean, I've been known to be wrong, and I have no problem saying when I'm wrong. But yes, I'm wrong. So yeah, and of course, we haven't. I think you might have talked to Chet since we graduated, but I haven't spoken with you. I believe when your book came out, I remember seeing something, and of course, I went back and tried to figure out through your Facebook page like what you've been doing. So I know you joined the Marines. If you could just take us again, give us a brief synopsis of what you've been up to, man, since the last time we spoke, me and you, and then go from there. Bring us right up to this moment right now.
All right. So no pressure. I mean, the general highlights kind of look like this. Like I graduated high school, and within 3 weeks, I was in the Marine Corps. I went through boot camp at 17 years old, and I was in the Corps for 4 years as an assaultman and as a machine gunner. And I met my current wife while I was in the Corps. I met her at church. I waited till I got out, honorably discharged. I got married to her at 21 years old. Like I said, we've been married for 23 years. And after I left the Corps, I really thought that I was never going to find an actual job. Like, what skills do I have coming out of the military as an infantryman? And I somehow struck a job as a weapons instructor for the Navy. So I did that for about a year and a half, and then I landed a contract with the Department of Defense as a weapons instructor, and I've been doing that for 20 years now. So
Nice.
that has been like my dream job, because not only did I get to use the skills that I got in the military as a Marine, but I was able to teach, and I was able to kind of keep making that footprint that felt like I was doing a good thing, and I was fighting the good fight and still having my hands in the right places. But then that also kind of blossomed into this media job where, instead of just being an instructor on the podium and on the range and teaching people how to handle weapons and survive these dangerous areas, it also kind of blossomed into making tutorials and videos. And now it's the same type of teaching, but it happens on a global scale. It might be having some kind of weapons interactions or things like that. And then at some point, I guess kind of in the middle of all that, because that really does kind of bring us to now, I did end up in 2008, the book that you had mentioned in 2008, I had kind of gotten to a point where I was going through a whole bunch of stuff in my life, and I just needed some way to kind of get my stuff together. So I ended up, ironically, training for an ultra marathon, and I ran that and I finished that, and that turned into the book, which we can talk about at some point. But it was really just a point of me kind of doing something to kind of get out of the rut of life where I, was behind on my taxes and I was gaining weight and I was unhappy in my marriage, and it was a mess, and I just had to kind of get out of that. So that led to the book, which led to another ultra marathon, and then cut to 3 years ago. As a complete fluke, I uploaded this random YouTube video of me playing a virtual reality game called Beat Saber, and that snowballed into my current YouTube channel, which is kind of what you see here.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. What year was that? Beat Saber?
It was, the first video went up in December of 2021.
Nice. Okay.
So Ross, what's the title of the book?
The title of the book is called 32 Miles from Fat Boy to Ultra Runner in 90 Days. You can find it on Amazon. I can assure you it's not worth buying. Like, for real, I'm not being humble. Don't buy it. Trust me. Don't buy it.
Did you self-publish it?
I did. I self-published, and I went through Author House, and the point was, like, it's really not worth buying. Like, the story itself, I think, is kind of cool, and I'm proud of the story, but the book was only a book because as I went through the whole thing, I was keeping a blog. I turned that blog into a story because people 2 years later were still talking about it like it was controversial, what I did. So I was like, well, look, if they're still talking about it 2 years later, I'll just turn it into a book and I'll throw it out there. Why not? And that's really all it was. There's no meat to it.
What's controversial about training for an ultra marathon?
It was really the dumb way that I did it. And that's why it was like, there was kind of people, the short version is this. I needed to get my life together. So I said, I'm going to give myself a year to go from bloated, lazy mess to finishing a 50K in California in 1 year. I'm going to give myself 1 year to do it. And I started training. I trained hard. I ended up collapsing at work. I went to the ER, and I was too scared to run on my own. It came to the point where I was 3 months away from the race, and I said, if I always quit, regardless of the reason, I'm always going to quit everything I do. So I made myself the point of, I got 90 days. I am going to do this no matter what it takes. So I went on Runner's World Forum, Runner's World magazine, and I started asking for help. Like, what can you tell me? What works for you? And I just took all the information. Half the people said, you're in a rut. I get it. You got to be extreme sometimes to get yourself out of that rut. The other people said, you need to learn how to do this correctly. You need to train correctly and be responsible. So that's what was really controversial about it. And that was the general gist, really.
Okay. So you can tell me if this is true or not. I have one memory of something I heard about you in high school, and the kind of I don't know if it's in line with your writing, but I somehow remember someone telling me that you like tried to sneak from one town to another without being seen or something like that, like wearing camouflage and ditches. And did you do that?
I did that. That was
okay. All right.
Yeah, that was true.
I misremember.
Did you do it successfully?
It's hard to say because we didn't have anybody, like we didn't know if anybody saw us.
No one's looking for you, right?
Right, exactly.
They could have been about 17 cars driving by, like, who's that retard?
Look at this idiot on the street. Yeah. Yeah, but no, we did that.
If we know about it,
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, if we know about it, then somebody must have saw you. Because you didn't tell anybody, right?
I told everybody. Look at me.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Okay.
So you
Oh,
crossed
good. That
where?
actually
What
happened. Very good.
was it from your house to like Franklin, or where were you?
Yeah, it was it was actually the night of prom. Instead of going to prom, we got in camis and we went and we crossed the river with rope at like 9 o'clock at night. It was actually pretty stupid, pretty dangerous. But we were like on the sides in the bushes. We were down Route 3, in behind buildings. Like nowadays, you get your ass shot doing that
Oh yeah,
stuff.
you
Yeah,
absolutely will.
Back then,
yeah,
nah.
yeah.
Yeah.
Was this before you knew you were going to join the Marines, or had you already committed as far as your mindset? And this was kind of like some sort of training event for you.
It was kind of training in a way. It was like I had made my mind that I was going in, and this was kind of a way to kind of shift into that mindset.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
cool. That makes more sense now. Yeah.
Well,
So your book,
Hey.
32 Miles from Fat Boy to Ultra Runner in 90 Days. One of the reviews, or the synopsis of it, there's a little blurb that I took out. This book is not about running, nor is it about living a healthy lifestyle. It is about understanding that we are only limited by our own misconceptions about what should be, not what could be. There is no should.
Mm-hmm.
Now, from that blurb, is that your writing, your words? It's I read that, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so I'm like, that's like Yoda. Do or do not. There is no try. That's exactly what I thought. I'm like, did that kind of inspire you at all, or no?
No,
just a coincidence. Huh?
total coincidence. And I have to admit, I have not seen the Star Wars movies since I was like a fetus. So it was unless
man.
it was in my brain somewhere, I can't give them credit.
That's interesting. You're just not a Star Wars fan or a Star Trek fan, or just I don't want to do a dig deep or dig dive on this, but like, I mean, I'm a huge nerd, and if yeah, appreciate it. We'll talk to you some other time.
Well, so long as you haven't watched any Star Wars since 1983, you should be pretty good. That's my take on it.
I'm good.
Well, I hope maybe I'll be able to inspire you to watch something.
I'm good with watching them for sure. Like I know they're huge movies for good reason. I just have not watched them since I was, a little turd biscuit.
Yeah. So again, sorry, I got off track, but yeah, your book again. I have the full Google review and a link to it. But I mean, other than like what you've already said, as far as it was a difficult time in your life. You just decided to start doing this ultramarathon. What inspired you other than, because you were going through this and doing the blog, but you didn't, at the time you were going through it, you probably weren't thinking, oh, I think I'll publish this book. So what inspired you or made you think like, hey, I think I'll publish this book? And you self-published it. Like did you not want to go to like an editor and they're like, this is trash, we don't want to, like, there's no reason.
Yeah. Pretty much. I mean, I had a guy that I had worked with at the time, and he had done some self-publishing. So he was like, "Look, dude, like you could have a great story, but it's going to be like there are gatekeepers in all of these industries. So if you try to go with a legit author or a publisher, you're going to have to go through this and this and this." He's like, "It's simple. Do this, go this route, and then you can just get it out there." Because for me, it was just, okay, well, if I can just take this already established story and turn it into a book, and then I'll be a published author, then great. Why not do that? And then who knows what that'll be on my resume, and who knows. But so that's what I did. I decided I'm just going to publish the book to say that I published the book, and then leave it at that. And yeah, it wasn't until 2 years after I ran that race that people were still talking about on the forums. And I said to my wife, people are still complaining. Like they're still arguing about this story. I should do it again to prove that I can do it and that all the haters were wrong. And then maybe I can publish it. And that's what I ended up doing. I ran a second ultramarathon, this time in the mountains of Virginia, which was a nightmare, but I did it. And then that became the book.
That's cool. So the two ultra marathons that you ran, what were the times that you finished and the discrepancy? Do you remember that? I mean, you don't need to disclose.
Oh yeah. And this is why I have to be so clear when I talk about this, because I struggled for years, like kind of telling the story, because I was kind of ashamed. I didn't train the right way. I wasn't living a healthy lifestyle. The first race that I ran was in California in Rosemont. It was the Helen Klein 50K Ultra, and it took me 7 hours and 58 minutes to run 31 miles. Now, part of that, and this, I don't want to give a bunch of disclaimers because I'm just happy I finished. But because of everything I went through with the short training, the 3 months, I overtrained so hard that when I stepped up to the starting line, I had stress fracture in my ankle. I had a stress fracture in my foot. My back was destroyed. My knees were a mess. I was limping at the starting line. And I was like, okay, I'm either going to do this or I'm not. So I was just happy I finished. But cut to 3 years later in 2011, I did the second ultra marathon, same thing. But this one was a month from not running at all to I'm going to do, 32 miles of mountains in Virginia. And that took me 9.5 hours.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Kudos to you, man. That's grueling.
I'd like to see Ross Bay's David Goggins death match.
Oh, bro, I can't handle Goggins.
Who's gonna carry the boats, man?
They don't know me, son.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. 9 hours. I mean, I've had some training evolutions in my day with the military, but nothing to that extent. So kudos to you, man. Good for you. Thanks. I mean, that's an accomplishment in itself. I mean, a marathon.
Will there be a trilogy?
Yeah.
What's that?
Will there be a trilogy?
Ooh. Oh, you had to ask, Wally, didn't you?
I had to.
Nobody knows this, including my wife. So I'm gonna speak this quietly.
Our lips are sealed. We only have 2 viewers, so you're safe.
I'm currently considering training this year to run another 30 miles, but this time in Iceland. I want to go in a specific spot in Iceland, run the 30 miles, and end at this small town on the southern tip called Vik, which is under this volcano. And we went there this last year. It was phenomenal. And we're driving in Iceland, and there's literally, you can see as far as the eye goes, and there's this big ass glacier. There's all these mountains. It's like being in a Lord of the Rings movie. And I just found myself at peace. And I was like, I kind of miss running. I miss feeling what it feels like to be out there and pushing yourself instead of just kind of letting life happen to you. So currently I'm in this mode of, do I want to make a trilogy? Yeah.
I think Wally's question has inspired you.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, your description of the scenery itself, like that is something that makes me want to go out and at least run a couple miles in those conditions. So I mean, that's very stoic, that description. So I mean, that'd be cool, man. I hope you do it for sure.
Now, I do also have to say, though, that being said, it's moments like this when I get out there and I'm like, okay, let's just go. Day one, no expectations. Let's just go feel outside again. And then my body goes, hey, bro, you're 44. Like, yeah, reality hits hard sometimes. So we'll see.
Yes, it definitely does.
Ross, are you still in New Hampshire?
No, I'm in Virginia now.
Okay.
Friend of the show, Jose Battle, is on with us. Ross, he's a regular on the show.
What's up, Jose?
I was stationed with him in the military, in the Army. So
nice.
He was taking care of his grandson, so that's why he's
good to meet you, brother. Thank you for your service.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Yeah. So if we can back up, Ross, a little bit to your the weapons training that you do for the military. So you DoD contractor, so you basically, you're not, or I guess it's probably two parts, right? You actually are going out to the range with individuals, training them, and you're also doing the media part where it's you guys are out there after everybody's done training and you go through essentially your training evolution, how to do this and that. And
right.
The question is, what what weapon systems? Is it small arms? Is it is it the heavy weapon systems? Which ones is your specialty and you train on?
The absolute majority of what I do is handgun, and it's mostly Glock. I can also do like long guns and shotguns and stuff like that. And really, it's with what we do, like most of what I do is Glock, period. But we also have, depending on who the client might be, it could be like some kind of long gun, an M4 of some type, or an AK, shotguns. We don't get into too much of the machine guns because it really just depends on who the client is. But I'd say 99.9% of my time is Glock.
Okay, nice, good. That's awesome, man. Good for you.
Oh, am I
I
freezing
used
up?
to. No, I don't think so. Oh, that no,
I
that's
think I'm
is
lagging a
that.
little bit.
Oh yeah, you are. You have a very good look though. It's very stoic. Like,
Word of the day.
it is. Yeah, I said it twice. There we go. We got you.
Back.
We got you
You good?
back. Yeah.
Are we good?
We're good.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, cool. Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
So how long have you been doing that since you got out after your initial 4 years?
Yeah, I did the Navy trainer for a year and a half, and then I've been doing the DoD thing for 20 years now.
Nice. Is it basic pistol marksmanship where you're up down unholstering and then drawing and then shooting, and is it also some CQB stuff or close quarter stuff? What is it specifically?
It's literally kind of everything from basic handling, disassembly, assembly to concealed carry to CQB to vehicle ambushes. I mean, it can be any array of anything that you could encounter in a hostile environment. That's kind of what we focus on. And it just depends on, like I said, who they are, which branch they're coming from, or which organization they're coming from. They say, we're going to this location, and then we can say, okay, well, you need this, 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 and this. And then we just give them a package that says, here's all the skills we think you might need in that region.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. And so also to clarify, the training that you give, the packages that you create, it can be from anybody, from an admin person that's going to sit with a pistol on their hip in front of their computer and probably never have to go outside the wire, to the guy that's the personal security detail for the general, and they're going to go out and about outside the wire to talk to locals, local government entities, and they need their personal security. So somebody that would be interacting with their weapon system every day. So
Exactly.
is that correct? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. That's cool, man.
It's a pretty broad spectrum, and it's one of the reasons that I love my job is because if I'm teaching a class of any topic, whether it's basic marksmanship with a pistol or mindset, I have, anywhere from 10 to 50 to 70 people of all walks of life, different mindsets, different mentalities, different backgrounds. Some of them don't even want to be there. They don't like guns. They don't want anything to do with them. So I've got to figure out a way to get that message across where not only do these 70 people understand it, but they will ideally retain it in what could be the worst day of their life. And that's a hell of a challenge. And that's why I love my job so much.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
Does valuing human life, even if you're taking it, even if you're forced to take it, does pausing to value human life help to mitigate some of the potential trauma that might come from a situation like that? And
I think the trauma just comes from my personal opinion would be the trauma would come from just not knowing what happens when a bullet enters a body and then actually seeing it. But if it's between me or somebody else, if it's eye gouging, if it's throat slitting, if it's a bullet to the face, that there's no question I'm going home and that individual is not. And I have no problems with stepping over their dead corpse to send another one of them to whoever their maker is. So yeah, that's again, the trauma would be like actually seeing the effects of what the weapon system is capable of firsthand. I think not actually ending. I have no problem ending somebody's life that is threatening mine or people that I care about. So I think that I hope most Americans feel that way, honestly. Protect you and yours for sure, and those that can't protect themselves. And like, yeah, that's the way I feel about it.
Yeah.
And I'll throw something on there as well. And I think where especially like I actually talked about this on my live stream earlier. It gets super complex. Like conflict in and of itself is an onion, and there's a top layer, and then as we dig further, it gets more and more complex. So on one level, like what Nate's talking about, yeah, you have to be able to very cleanly say it's either him or it's me, period. Now that's the first layer. You have to be able to acknowledge this is all that's happening. It's a transaction. It's either him or it's me, and then I get to go home at the end of the day, period. But then as you start to kind of peel away the layers, there comes a point where, like, you're specifically asking, does taking a moment to kind of pause and think about, like, I'm taking this guy's life, that's what gets tricky because, and again, I'm not saying this from like I've had this experience, but in the thousands and tens and thousands of hours of training, as well as talking to people that have been through like medal honor winners, interviews, the whole 9 yards, it gets tricky because that kind of hiccup in thought can cost you your life. So like that level of thought has to be reserved for like what Nate was talking about, like in the rear. The mission is done, we go back, then we can kind of like process what happened. And as you start to kind of peel the layers away, there comes a point where you reach and say, that guy is literally doing the same thing that I'm doing, and we both think we're doing the right thing. That shit gets tricky. And if you take any conflict in any region of any year in the human history, you're going to have every side will think they're doing the noble thing for their side. And it gets super complex. So that's why a lot of times, especially like in our roles, we have to kind of close up all those layers and keep it really simple. It's either him or it's me. And it's not until we're in the rear with the gear that we can say, okay, I'm feeling some stuff. I got to figure this shit out. And then we go to a professional and we kind of break it down and get through it.
I will say that, when you're training, one of the things I would tell my soldiers is, hey, it's collateral. There's going to be collateral damage. It's the nature of the business. And, Nate, it's either him or me. And, if, like Ross said, if you do take that moment, it may cost you your life because then you start taking pause. Then you start thinking that you start seeing the person as a person and not as the enemy, not as an object in your way. And I know that sounds kind of cool, but it's almost like, in MMA or boxing where you don't want to look across the ring and go, oh, that's a nice guy there. You want to go and I'm going to take your head off. We can be nice after, but when we're going through this fight, you're in my way to where I want to go. And that's the mentality you have to have because the moment you hesitate, it's instead of being him, it's going to be you. And that's how you train. That's what you're taught. That's what the thought process is. And that was for me probably the most taxing because my soldiers did take pause. They did kind of sit down. Oh, like what, and for me, I was like, look, we got a job to do. We don't got time to sit here. We'll do our ceremony. We'll say goodbye, and then we'll keep it moving. And they did. They had a ceremony. We paid our respects to the people, put them on the truck, and shipped them out, and then we went back to work. And I told them, I said, it's it. It's over. Move on. And I don't want to hear another word about it. And it may seem cold, but it has to be that way. And with any profession that you're in where it could be that situation, police, military, whatever, you got to be you got to be real cerebral and be able to put your emotions to the back burner and or, have that emotional intelligence to say, hey, I can't be thinking about that right now. I got to be thinking about how do I handle this? What's my next step? And how do I come out on top? So that's just how I went about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think logically and practically, I can understand that the point of view. I think that makes all the sense in the world. But I do have to wonder, as if you said the statistic earlier, Ross, 22 veterans take their lives a day. Does that mentality lead to that outcome at all? And I don't know the answer to that necessarily, but I have to wonder.
Well, I think too, part of the issue, I think, is part of the restriction on mental health that we've always had. It's always been like, suck it up, buttercup. Don't be soft. You're going to kick in that door. You're going to do the job, and you're going to be a man, and that's what's expected of you, period. No questions asked. But over time, we've seen like that ends up being a problem. And I'll tell you what I liken it to that made sense for me is some of you have kids. You have kids that might be of age to play games like Fortnite or Call of Duty. And if you've seen your kid throw an absolute tantrum while playing these games, there's a reason for that. They're sitting there and they are completely engrossed in this very high-paced, high-stakes game or whatever it is. And they're playing. The adrenaline and the cortisol in their body is growing and growing and growing. And at some point, they have to have a release. So they throw a tantrum, they throw the controller, and there's some type of emotional explosion because it's been building inside of them. When we have guys and soldiers overseas for 1 tour, 2 tour, 5 tours, that have to go through this over and over again every single day. Even if they're not seeing direct combat, it's being on edge all the time. If there is never a way for them to emotionally have some type of release, they're going to have some type of break, which is why it's so important for us to understand first that this is what the job requires. Okay, got it. But then once that job is done, how do I come back down? That has to make sense to me. So every single person, regardless of upbringing, regardless of what their role was, regardless of how many missions they've been on, there has to be some point for everybody, an opportunity for them to come back down and come back to reality and at least make peace with either some of the decisions that they made or something that might have happened. But there has to be some level of processing. If there isn't, there's going to be a break.
So I've been an ER nurse for about 15 years, and so I've seen a fair share of death. A lot of it is the elderly, obviously, but obviously there's the traumas in there, and I'm not comparing the two necessarily because being on the front lines, having someone, I've been punched and kicked in the ER, but I've never been shot at yet, and Lord willing, let's keep it that way. But I had this, the first time I experienced death and I felt it, I had already been a nurse for a while. And it was early in the morning. It's like, I don't know, 3, 4 in the morning. You're like that kind of tired where it feels like a zombie's chewing the back of your brainstem. Or like you're just barely alive.
Oh, yeah.
And this dad brings a 3-year-old girl in, and my daughter was 3 at the time, and she was lethargic, and immediately, something's the matter. So we couldn't get vascular access. She was in the ER earlier that day for a head injury, so we're all sort of like looking in that direction. Trying to get vascular access, the doctor was of no help whatsoever. Eventually, we got the interosseous needle out, drill through the bone to get some kind of access. At the time, nurses couldn't do that. The doctor had to do it. He was a complete nincompoop, had no idea what he was doing. So anyway, long story short, as soon as we get vascular access, she starts seizing, and then she goes asystolic. So we're doing chest compressions on a 3-year-old, giving the medications, intubating her, and so like same kind of deal. You get to an emotional flat line where you're like, this just needs to be done. We're delivering defibrillations at certain points. We're cracking ribs, and we resuscitated her. And man, breathe a sigh of relief, right? High-fiving each other. This took like 3 hours.
Jeez.
A helicopter comes, flies her down to Children's Hospital, and we are exhausted, but on cloud 9. and go home, get a few hours of sleep, come back to work the next day. And so I found out when the helicopter landed, she coded and she died. And the the first reaction I had in my spirit was an angry,
Hmm.
sad morass, and I just wanted to scream no as hard and angrily as I could, just like you see in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed like the only response is to be angry and sad and just want to scream and punch something
Yep.
and weep and all those things wrapped into one. And so I was it reminded me of so there's a story in the Gospels where Jesus raises a man Lazarus from the dead, and the story in the Bible is he's just got this buddy Lazarus, and Lazarus' friends show up, say, "Hey Jesus, this guy's sick, your friend." The town's like 2 miles away. He could have been there in like 30 minutes, healed them like he had been healing everybody else. He waits there another 2 days. Meanwhile, Lazarus dies. And so Jesus goes down knowing full well that he's about to raise this guy from the dead. And when he sees where Lazarus was laid, it's the shortest verse in the Bible, says Jesus wept. And just prior to that, it says Jesus was deeply moved in his spirit. And the Greek word for that is this anger. It's an anger, sadness mix. And so the way that Jesus paused, knowing full well he was going to raise, he's been like, hey, guys, just chill. I'm going to raise this guy from the dead. No big deal. Just wait 5 minutes. He pauses and feels the sadness and the anger of what sin has wrought in humanity. And he pauses and he feels that, and the Bible documents that. And then he raises this guy from the dead. And the fact that he paused and recognized what death has wrought amongst his creation, and how he acknowledges um, the humanity of it all, and pauses for death, and pauses in such a way that was like, I felt that exact same thing.
Mm.
And it just makes me wonder that if by acknowledging, pausing to feel the anger and sadness of any death, even someone who's trying to, and I'm not saying in the moment, like,
Mm-hmm.
you cock your head to the side like a cocker spaniel and you look at this guy longingly before you plug him. That's not what I'm talking about. But what is that something that has a healing power, or at least and because by acknowledging his humanity, I'm acknowledging my own.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I guess sacralizing death in a way, even if it's your enemy, and there's some horrible people, and I'm not saying that I would feel sad for that some of these horrible people have died, but just thinking in a moment like that, when maybe after the battle, that feel, allowing those emotions and recognizing that sadness, anger, if what kind of effect that might have, or if you've experienced that.
Well, I think that what you're describing is exactly the type of processing that needs to be happening that doesn't happen enough. And I think that, like, acknowledging, like a good therapist will let you talk. They might have to guide you a little, but they will let you talk. And a lot of times they'll literally, like a 3-year-old, ask you why, and you say, okay, well, I feel angry. Why? And then it forces you to kind of dig, and you might end up at that point where you're saying, well, I feel this because of this, and I experience this, and that guy this, and you just kind of have to go through. And if ultimately, when you come full circle, ideally you come to an understanding that you did everything that you had to do, and they did everything that they had to do, and that's just part of being a human in the world as it is, and what conflict is conflict. But you're at least acknowledging that, like, this is it's sadly it's just the way it is, and like, he's a guy and
Yeah,
I'm a guy, and this is life and death. I mean,
yeah,
it's a very simplistic way to look at it, but I think it's such a complex issue that that thankfully nowadays is becoming more and more exposure is a very good thing. Man, we really hit the full gamut already, haven't we?
Yeah, I've been wanting
Is
to
it even 8
backtrack.
o'clock yet?
I've been wanting to backtrack, but we'll get there. We'll get there eventually. Yeah, that's a good way of stating it, Ross. It's definitely, again, there isn't enough of that. I went through the military same time as you, same time as Jose. The bravado thing is a real thing. The stigma now, probably in the last, and Jose can attest to this. He retired a few years ago as well. But I mean, the stigma of, you know, having to go talk to a shrink about your feelings, and that has lifted somewhat. It still exists
Sure.
in certain areas in small communities. By that I mean, if it's an all male unit, I'm sure there's guys that feel weak when they do that. But you know, the ones that embrace it, I think, are the ones that are going to be healthier in the long run. I mean, I did it towards the end, and it was just, you know, I never talked about to anybody about anything until my last 2 years, and then it was just like a whole bunch of emotions, a whole bunch of stuff, things that I didn't even realize through the therapy, that I, you know, the remorse that I had for certain things, the, you know, the feelings that I had about, you know, being making selfish decisions to serve. I felt like it was a selfish decision to pull myself away from my family to serve in the military and be deployed like that. And so I have remorse for missing time with my family and missing out on their lives because I made a selfish decision to go overseas and deploy and serve my country. So, I mean, again, there isn't enough of that. The military does now, or I should speak for the Army only, but the Army does do very well at educating the new soldiers coming in on mental health. The mental health facility is bigger than any retirement process that the military has now. So at least at Fort Hood specifically, where I out process. I'm sure that same arena exists somewhere in every installation. And it's something that's definitely being improved upon. But to Tim's point, like, again, I'll step over the dead body, or as I'm stepping over, double tap and then keep moving forward. Like it's just one of those things. We might pray to the same God, you know, and did I win this? Did I win this battle? Is my team winning? I don't really know. And that's the conflict, like Ross said earlier, that is every conflict that's ever existed throughout history. Like one side believes in their cause, the other side believes in theirs. And I've also, you know, I have a bunch of stories, but I try to put it in layman's terms for my soldiers. When we were in Iraq and Afghanistan, it was like, what would you do if someone was invading your country? Mm-hmm. You would fight tooth and nail, and everybody would have a weapon, and and we'd be doing exactly what, you know, the enemy is doing in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's an unconventional war. You know, we'd be doing exactly that. If somebody sets foot on our nation's sovereign soil, like, sorry, but that their soul is. I want to send every one of their souls to whoever their maker is, and I will stop at nothing to do that. Like, you want to come over here? Oh, heck no. So I put that into perspective to, like, fight. They're going to fight tooth and nail. Like, they'll be hardened. Don't underestimate them, all those things. So yeah, we definitely went through the gambit on that.
What's next on the docket, Nate?
Well, we still haven't finished Ross's introduction, but I wanted to go back to your. We haven't finished questions that I had. So, as far as what struck me was basically you love to interact with the soldiers, teaching, instructing. I can resonate with that, because for about 8 years I was a weapons, small arms all the way through heavy weapon systems, and also did training on what we call what's the term for it? we have what's called gunnery, where we use vehicles and we have a stabilized and unstabilized platforms to shoot heavy weapon systems off of. Stabilized would be like a tank. That's a stabilized weapon system as far as the smaller arms are concerned. And then you get into like a Humvee that's unstabilized because the vehicle rocks back and forth, etc. So done a lot of that stuff, done a lot of weapons manipulation, CQB, training on all that stuff. Was an absolute blast. Loved every second of it. Through my years, because I was still in the military, being that weapons instructor, I was not very charismatic as you were, as you state. Like, but through my later years, because I was again a drill sergeant mindset, like do this because it'll save your life. Why aren't you doing it? Do it again, over. And then,
Yep.
I learned that there are better ways to instruct as I move through my career and as I move through life in general, better ways to communicate with people, better ways to talk to people. So I became a little bit more charismatic towards the latter years. And I was helping my younger NCOs to try to evolve in that aspect. Like it's not always, it's not, don't keep hitting the nail with the hammer. You can be a little bit, take a step back, use a different tone, all that stuff. So yeah, but those are some of the best days. I did that and hand to hand, our hand to hand stuff, which is MACP, as we call it, Modern Army Combatives Program. That was a lot of fun. So
Okay.
Back to a question for you about your YouTube. I saw a lot of BTS stuff on there, a lot of BTS reviews. That whole phenomenon is just I don't understand it. If you could talk to us about that, and also, if you remember, like what was the biggest surge that you had as far as on your YouTube subscriptions in general? Was it a specific video? Was it a topic and a bunch of videos that just gained a bunch of interest and piled everything on for you?
So I told you the first thing that I did was I uploaded a video of me playing a virtual reality game. Basically, I'm just hitting blocks with swords to music. And it just so happens that one of those songs was a BTS song. And next thing you know, after I upload it, I'm getting all these comments and then like 100 subscribers. I'm like, huh. And they're like, oh, you like their music? You should check out another song. So, okay, I'll do another one. So I uploaded the next video the next day, another 100 subscribers, more comments, people going batshit. And I said, what the hell? I mean, I like the music, but this is
Wait,
weird.
what's BTS?
It's a Korean music group. There's 7 guys and it's like K-pop, but it's that's the general gist of it, but it's a lot deeper than that. Like they have really great messages. They've talked at the UN. They've got a whole bunch of series and stuff, but that's what started it. This is just their music. And then next thing you know, they said, you should start reacting to them. And I said, what? I don't even know what that means. I said, well, just watch a video of theirs. Watch a music video and then just tell us what you think. I was terrified. What the hell am I going to say about a K-pop video? Like, look at me. But I said, okay, I do it for the story. So I did it and I friggin' loved it so much. And thankfully, because of what I do for a living now, I'm able to kind of say, like, I'm a director. I direct videos, short films sometimes. Like, this makes sense. So I just kind of, as a director, here's what I see. Here's how they filmed this. And then I check out the lyrics because obviously he was singing in Korean. What the hell do I know about Korean? So that's what started it all. And then from the first day that I did a music video reaction and I broke the whole cinematography down and I read the lyrics and all that, it was 5 weeks and I hit 10,000 subscribers. It exploded. And within that time frame, like we started a Discord server, I started doing live streams on the 6-week mark, and then it just kind of sat. So I had this huge explosion in the beginning, and I mean I was working like 2 full-time jobs to make this happen. And then I started doing live streams, and then for that entire first year, it was nothing but BTS. And it could not have come at a more perfect time because I was strangely, 4 years later, I was still dealing with the loss of my dad. And I'll never forget this. right before this all took place, I was sitting on the couch with my wife and I put my laptop down and I said, I need to get lost in something. I can't find myself anymore. I need an addiction. I need something. And then just I started doing this, and it was like their music was like catchy and the lyrics were deep and there was all these little onion layers to everything, and it gave me a chance to get lost in something. So for that whole first year was BTS, and I started the year in that first 10,000 subscribers. I ended the year at like 13,000. So it was like a big bump in the beginning and then it just kind of trickled for the rest of the year. Well, in the beginning of that second year is when I stopped doing just BTS and I opened the floodgates. I started asking people, who else do you like? What other good deep music is there that we can kind of dissect and analyze? Well, that second year, we went from 13,000 to like I think 80,000 or 78,000 or something, and then it just went from there. And it was like I think the first week of July or maybe June of this year is when we hit the 100,000 mark. So we've done everything from music videos from Korea to Kazakhstan and Japan and all these different cultures. Like we have people in almost like every country across the world. I mean, all the stuff that you see back here, this is all gifts from people. It's incredible. And
that's cool.
it's been quite a wild ride and a complete fluke that literally had me saying, I'm going to give it a try. I'm just going to do it for the story. If I crash and burn, so be it. But I'm going to say I went down on a hell gunfire.
So is the
That's
goal
cool.
to be doing the online stuff? Like, is the hope to make that full time?
Ooh, I think about that sometimes. I do love my full-time job doing what I do. But the truth is that with the live stream stuff and the YouTube stuff, there is a massive volatility to it. And what a lot of people don't think about is when I go live and I do 2 or 3 live streams a week. I mean, at this point, I've done like 300 live streams. Um, you are on the entire time, and you are literally one word away from being canceled at any one time. So it's terrifying. So in a perfect world, I would like to make some more money from it, sure, but I don't know if I'd be willing to let go of my full-time, very secure job and do it full-time. As much as I love it, I don't know if I could make that switch.
We hear you there.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, with your full-time job, you're a government employee, right? So you get all the holidays off, all the no?
I'm not an employee. I'm an independent contractor.
Oh, okay. But you work when they work, which is
I do, but because of the fact that I kind of made my own position as like a hybrid between instructor and like media producer, I can literally work whenever I want, all the time. I go in when I want, I leave when I want. Life is good.
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And to recap on the training stuff that you send out to entities, is that in the place of not only classroom instruction but also range stuff, if they may or may not be able to actually get on the range. So maybe you're talking about dry fire techniques, things, your weapons manipulation without firing, doing mag reloads, all that stuff. Is that
Yeah, everything. And I mean, and you probably know, like when you shoot a gun on a range, like if you take what you do with dry fire, it's basically just holding an empty gun in a safe direction and practicing the techniques and manipulations. That's what we call dry fire. You take those skills and then you put them on a range with a live gun with live ammo. The only real difference is that the gun goes bang, but everything that you're doing mechanically and robotically is exactly the same. So what we tell people is, even if you can't get to a range, when you hold the gun and you bring it into the index and you grab that next magazine, everything you're doing should be methodical and to the T how you want your body to respond when all hell has broken loose. And even if you do that dry fire without the gun going bang, your body is still learning. Muscle memory, nerve memory. These are the things that keep you alive when all hell breaks loose. So we do everything from those basic manipulations to mindset to after the gun stopped firing to ambushes and all kinds of stuff. Everything.
That's cool. Do you teach anybody any kind of techniques if they only have one hand at some point. And now, well, I'm sure you also instruct on how to shoot on offhand as far as strong hand. And then also, how do I reload if I only have one freaking hand to reload? How do I manipulate the weapon system one handed if I need to? Especially, yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
And
That's
you
good
think
stuff.
about like, and I'll say this very easily because there's 6 dudes sitting here, but I feel like what I've learned over time is that as men, we a lot of times we approach problems as in a very military man mindset. It's here's a problem. We have to find a solution. Whatever it takes, we will fix this problem. So, like with Nate talking about, if I only have one hand, can I still fight? Yes. How do I do that? And I train to find a solution for that very unfortunate scenario. If it's only my support hand, can I still make everything happen? Yes, I can. And I feel like it's one of the greatest skills that I learned in the military is this mentality of find a solution, no excuses, no matter what it takes, figure out how to make it work. Now, as good of a mentality as that is, it also gets me into trouble. And I don't know if this is something that you guys can also relate to, but how many times has my wife been like, you got to stop. I don't need a solution. I just need you to listen to me. And you're like, okay, sorry. I'll listen. Okay. Yeah. Learn the hard way.
Yeah.
Are we recording? Are we recording?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
we
yeah.
are. Yeah.
Oh no, I never run into that problem with my wife ever. She's always like, I think your approach is perfect. I appreciate it. And yeah, we're all good here.
And
Yeah.
you're handsome.
There you go. Yeah. Chat, what happened to the thing you around your neck? You had like this moil thing going on. I liked it.
Oh, Tim, that's typically called the scarf by normal folk.
Okay. Okay.
And so I was wearing that and I turned my heater on because it's so cold here that I decided to take that off. This might come off too if you gentlemen are like,
Hey.
hey.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was this kind of party.
It is now.
It's 6 dudes.
So Ross, as a weapons instructor,
Oh, back
I'm
to that.
sure you're a supporter of the Second Amendment. Do you also have a license to either carry or conceal carry? And also, do you duty carry when you work, as in you can walk on base with a sidearm? Those are the questions that I have.
I can carry at work, and I mean we're on a shooting range, so it makes perfect sense. I do concealed carry as well. I have a permit, and pretty much anytime I leave the house and I'm going to be, and this is where I feel like a lot of people would say, well, you could do a little better than that. If I'm going to be in like a crowded area, movie theater, or even like a crowded area, that's when I'm probably going to carry. But I'm not the kind of guy anymore that brings every single place that I go. Now, I know that's not the right answer because hell can break loose anywhere. Grocery store, driving down the street, you don't even have to get out of the car. Things can go wrong. But that's just kind of as I've gotten older, I'm less likely to carry unless I feel like I might actually need it.
Yeah.
Which is a weird statement. I know that's not the
It's
wrong.
not actually, I'm a mental health professional. I will tell you this. You made a point earlier of PTSD being on edge every second of every day. So it sounds like you've made a choice to be like, if I truly detect a threat, then I'm going to carry. But I'm not going to be like, I'm going to walk out in my front yard and think that there's going to be some coyotes and a bear and also the opposite team coming at me. I need to carry every single second or I'm fucked. And truthfully, like you said, we never know when there's going to be a threat, but you've made the choice to be like, I'm going to take a second and think, do I really need this right now? And I think that the end result is probably better for your mental health.
Yeah, for sure.
I really think that. And so that's all I got to say about that.
I think that's a great point. And you know what to me defined when I do and when I don't is there was always this mentality for us. I say for us, I'll just say for me, this mentality for me that if I'm out and a threat presents itself, it is my responsibility to neutralize that threat. Okay, got that. However, if I'm in a movie theater and a threat presents itself and start blasting people, I'm going to do what I can do. Like, I have no choice. However, if I'm somewhere out in a parking lot and something happens, my first response is going to get behind something. Let's figure out what the hell's going on. if I introduce a second gun into the mix, I don't know how crazy things are about to get. Now, I look like the gunman, like it gets really wonky. So, what I started doing, to Chet's point, is if I feel like I could end up in a situation where I'm cornered, I have no way to get away from the potential threat, then I might carry. But if I feel like there's a way away from that where I can still help people, I can shift people away, get away from the sound of the gunfire, whatever the case is, then I'll likely do that. But it has been much better for me, yes, to not carry all the damn time, because I did have a moment where things had kind of really peaked for me, and we almost had a bit of a situation here at the house where my PTSD had kind of peaked, and I was this close to emptying my entire pistol into the darkness one night. It was bad.
Yeah.
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 It can become a lot. It can become a lot really, really, really fast if you're not careful. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to go down the wormhole of like how we should respond and when a threat's presented to
I
us.
know.
But
Yep.
I've had this conversation. I don't know if Chet was on, but I had it with Wally about, because we've been around firearms and on ranges, even the people that are trained properly, and again, they're not engaging real targets, but you can tell by the way they present the weapon, by the way they're holding it, the type of training that they have. And it'll only take you a second to identify that. And also,
Yep.
I've told people before, if they're firing live rounds and they have no ear protection in, they can't hear shit around them. And they're so laser focused. They're so laser focused on everything that's at the business end of that muzzle, that if you have an opportunity to, you should try and, flank that person, get
Yeah, I agree.
behind them. And then, and again, that also depends. If I'm with my family, families first, get them to a safe area, and then think about that. If I'm by myself, then it's a different story. And
Right.
again, we'll the scenario changes slightly, but that's also just easy little things like that. If people would, again, there's all kinds of training out there for this stuff. There's all sorts of stuff on YouTube. I mean, if you're interested, I can send you guys some links, but it's just little things like that, again, to neutralize a threat. And the threat isn't, I would say, even though they have a weapon, they're not a seasoned veteran, and they're not like, it's not like a movie where they're super hyper aware of everything around them. Yeah, no, it's laser focused down in one direction, wherever that thing's pointed. And if you can at any point, flank them, that should be very easy again. And the no ear pro, that's just a no brainer. Like, they can't hear shit if they've been shooting a weapon, if they have no ear pro. So, but I think we can segue into, we wanted to ask you, Ross, some questions as far as, a podcast developmental and growth kind of theme. As far as you said, you kind of stumbled on it, but I mean, it sounds like you were very proactive in listening to your listeners, your viewers, and actually just giving them what they wanted. Like, and it just, I'm sure, I don't know if at one point everything that you were doing was something that somebody suggested, and if you diverted a little bit and did some of your things and then came back to comments and like, oh, like, yeah, I should try that. And then, so I guess just tell us a little bit about that. If you did always, you're currently now, most of your content is following somebody's suggestion that listens, and you just go off of that, or are there some ideas of your own that you just throw out there and it's like a coin toss, like, oh, people like that. Oh, no, people didn't like that.
Right. So when I first got involved with what I'm doing, I kind of had to go by the whims of the audience because I didn't know anything. And they really just said, hey, all we want to do is watch you watch that video. That's it. And then just tell us what you think. That's how it started. But as I progressed, it became, okay, well, now see if you can figure out the hidden meaning behind this. So it got a little deeper. Nowadays, I have quite a schedule. So we do everything from movie nights to, Q&A or music video breakdowns, all kinds of stuff. Sometimes, shows and series and stuff. And it's mostly now us watching things together, and then I just say a bunch of dumb shit that's fun, and then everybody stays entertained. Because now think about this. Well, let me answer your question first. A good
Thank
chunk of
you.
what we watch is suggested by other people. It's requested. Yes. However, I have learned the hard way numerous times. You have to stick with your own integrity. You have to stick with your gut. If you start to put on this mask of, I'm going to be what everybody wants me to be, when that mask slips and they see the real you, they're going to bolt. So if you just are open and honest with who you are as a person, you are much more likely to actually attract the people that are there for you versus who you are pretending to be. So while the content itself is requested, I am always very easy to say, no, 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 because I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get into politics. I don't want to get into religion. I just keep it simple. We can all sit here and have fun, because here is the beauty of this. If you think about, very simply put, without getting too crazy, if you think about the pandemic and the fact that we were all locked in our damn homes for a crazy amount of time, what ended up kind of birthing from this was shows like Watch Party, and where you're watching somebody watch something and it feels like you are with a friend, right? So that's what my whole channel has become. People that may be a little socially awkward sometimes, or they're not comfortable in their own skin, or they're homesick, whatever, they throw on one of my videos or one of my live streams, and they're with people that they recognize, their names are the same, and they start to bond over this content. And I just happen to be the guy on the screen. So it's kind of a beautiful thing, because I can tell you like a whole bunch of information from all these people around the world, as far as like what their spouse's name is and how old their kids are. And I'll buy somebody dinner sometimes, and I'll say, hey, talk to so and so and get their PayPal, and I'll send them dinner. Or I send out albums and giveaways and stuff like that. And it's got this whole big community that's really based on the idea that we all are like-minded, and that we like entertainment, we like this type of music, but we also kind of want to put some good back into the world.
Yeah, that's good to hear,
Awesome.
man. Yeah, that's awesome. Do you, in the beginning, you were basically recording, not live streaming. Is the majority of your stuff now all live stream, and then it's published when you finish, so there's no editing? And then also any tips for everything from software to editing techniques to even the hardware that you have, the microphone that you have, the lighting, anything on that line?
So here's what I can tell you. So you're using Zoom to do this call. If you have, this will just produce one video file for you, right? One video and audio file.
Yeah.
Okay. So, as far as editing software, depending on how deep you want to get with what you've got, I have to assume something really simple and basic will work, and you can just kind of up the audio where needed. You can cut out what you need and throw on an intro and an outro, and kind of be done with it. If you decide to go like live, where you have an audience participation level, consider something like OBS. I think it's, what is it?
OBS.
OBS. Yes. I can't remember what it stands for, but maybe like online broadcaster system or something like that. But OBS Studio is the hands down the way to go. So like I have a Shure SM7B microphone. I have a Sony A7S camera. I have another Sony A7S. I've got multiple monitors. I've got lights. Like I can tell you gear wise everything to get and how to set it up. It's pretty substantial. And it seems like it's just me sitting on my computer, and that's true. But if I were to show you kind of what's happening, it's like a NASA cockpit. Like it's a lot. But I have got buttons and dials and all kinds of shit. But as far as growth goes, like I mean, I'm curious, are you generally asking because you're looking to take your podcast to the next level and you want to grow?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so then I would say that one, going live is very important, because when you can interact with people, that's not only good for you, it's trickier for you as the host and for the people on the screen, but it's better for them too, because now the conversation can be reciprocal. It can't really be reciprocal when it's an offline video. So if you can go live, great.
So if we could respond, so to your point, Ross, I think I saw when you were telling that story, I saw a bunch of comments happening at the same time. And so if we're talking sports, let's say, or we're talking nostalgia or whatever, not politics, let's not go there. But like we're talking whatever, right? So we start to see responses and someone can say like, oh, this person over here said this, let's talk about that. Then that person feels validated by Wally, rejected by me, loved by Nate, and then want to come back and comment again. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, and you think about the beauty of like why everybody is so thrilled now that the gatekeepers of general media are gone. Like a bozo like me can start a YouTube channel and do well because there's no gatekeepers anymore. I'm the one in charge of it, and the market will speak. So the point is, everybody wants to be heard. That's why comments explode on videos. That's why live chat will start to stream, because people want to be heard. So if you allow them to talk to you, and then you respond back, well, they feel heard, and then it just begins the cycle. And live streams have a much greater momentum because people can interact.
Get that. Terrified by it. Terrified, honestly, by that, because like you said,
should be.
We can be canceled any second. And I kind of like my job and supporting my family. I'm pretty big on that.
Now, for you, Ross, is it just YouTube Live? Like it's a live stream on YouTube that you use? And
I have done live streams on YouTube. It's how I started, but it has progressed over to Twitch now. And Twitch is a live streaming platform mainly for gamers, but it's kind of opened up a bit. And I do most of my stuff on Twitch now. And then once I'm done the live stream, let's say we watch 10 videos and I analyze 10 different videos. I'll then take that live stream file, I send it to my editor, and then she breaks it down, and then she puts out 10 videos on YouTube, cut and stripped and ready to go.
What kind of videos have they asked you to watch? Sorry, go ahead, Nate.
You actually have an editor that does it for you?
I do. It's a woman out of New York. She started off as a subscriber, and she loved what I was doing, and she just, like, I talk to her every single day, and I say, hey, the new upload is up. And then she says, hey, what do you want to do with this? Let's do this thumbnail. Let's do this. And then she just does all of it. And then with the Discord server, there's a whole team of moderators. I've got an admin. You know, it's people from all over the world, different time zones, so that everybody is kind of always churned.
Oh. Hopefully we didn't lose him.
A bad promo for his.
I have another question. Oh, there we go.
There he is.
So I'm familiar with Twitch and Discord because I'm a gamer, but on Twitch I'm not familiar with this function, so I'm going to ask on Twitch if one of us wanted to join you in the live stream with a live video. Is that possible to do? Kind of like what we're doing here, and do you know if multiple people can do that, etc.?
It is possible, and I'm not sure exactly as far as Twitch's basic functionality of how many people, but I do know you can do like a dual live stream. I think the easiest way to go about it these days is, depending on what type of quality you're pushing, there's another website called Video Ninja. If you look that up, it's a way for everybody to kind of use a link, and then you can kind of get all of their video and audio at once, and then you have control as the host to kind of put it all together, and it's a little cleaner. But Twitch is generally set up where multiple people can have a dual live stream of some type. Yeah.
Is your editor on the payroll, or does she just do this because she loves your content?
Because she loves the content. I have been begging to pay her for 2 years now, and she just refuses.
That's interesting. I was actually playing around with some different platform software where, again, it's an AI based platform where I just upload the video and it'll automatically populate how I could actually tell it, like, give me 10 90-second clips, and it would out of the 2 hours of video, it would pull 10 clips, clip them up for you, and then just give you that based off of, again, AI, all the algorithms of what you said, how you said it, and like what's popular. And I just
have you done that already? You've been happy with it so far?
I haven't used it. I've been flirting with it because there's nothing out there that's free for that. So
Yeah. And see, I went that route too, and I was not happy with it. And it was really because the system itself really just takes your clip, it looks at the waveforms, and it says, oh, here's a peak in audio. That must have been something important or exciting. And it just clips around that. Well, I can do that for 15 seconds and just go peak,
Yeah.
peak, cut. And you're going to get the same result. Give it a try. You might have better luck than I did, but I was pretty unsatisfied.
do you remember the platform or the software?
Oh, I want to say it was something related to cross clip or something like that. Maybe there's a couple of them floating around.
Okay. I'll think about it. Again, it just piqued my interest that it was one. I didn't want to pay for it. That's what turned me off on it. And then, but again, in reading the description, like it was AI based, so it was. My understanding was that although the peaks in emotional vocal responses, but it also uploads the transcript. So there's again, just like resume reading AI, it's looking for keywords as well.
Gotcha.
So that's what piqued my interest. But I was wondering if you specifically like that stuff. But, well, thanks. Definitely.
Can I
thanks
take
for the
umbrage
info.
before we say? I want to take umbrage. I want to get super controversial right now. I take umbrage with something that Ross said. I can't quote you directly, but we can rewind the tape. Something like, I'm talking, people are watching, I happen to be the one on the screen, people happen to be entertained, I just got lucky. No. You are a remarkable person. And so if you decide to pick up a microphone and you decide to sit in front of a screen and watch a video and talk and say something, you have a lot to say about it. It's probably going to be two things, which always works: intelligent and also humorous. Depending on what the mood calls for, you are wildly good at those things. And so I'm upset with you for not taking credit for it.
You're such a mental health professional. God.
Yes.
He's always been
Yeah, I've
pretty
been friends with
humble.
you since you were like 3 years old or whatever it was, like 10 or whatever. You know, like I really mean that. Like you are a remarkable person. There's one other person I've said that to in my whole life. You are a very remarkable person.
I appreciate that, Chad. That means a lot to me.
Got
Buddy.
it.
I mean, and you've known me for a long time, so I appreciate that. You're not just some boob on YouTube that says, "Hey, you're hot. I love your man nipples." Nate, edit that out.
Get rid of that one.
Man
Get rid of that part.
But hey, that does boost your confidence too. So I mean, it's
True.
in a little, but I mean, yeah, you've always been super humble and very still charismatic, I would say. And you have a way with words. You have a way with expressing yourself. And I mean, who doesn't have confidence but somebody that wore Daisy Dukes to school?
Bro, I slayed it with those jeans, bro.
Oh yeah, Nate. What stories do you have, Ross, about like Nate? Don't involve me, but Nate Wally or Tim.
Yeah. Sorry. Before you answer that or start on a story, when did you transition to the storytelling? And what again was this something? Did you see somebody from high school or somebody that you still talk to from high school that commented and said, "Man, it would be funny if you told this story," and then it just cascaded from there?
No, it was actually before I started even doing live streams. I was watching a video. One of the guys from BTS did a song called Chicken Noodle Soup. And one of the girls in that video was wearing Daisy Dukes. And I was like, yo, let me tell you a story. And I don't know why, but I told them that story. And now that shit lives on the internet. But it was such a big hit that I was like, you know, I feel like it's a good story. It's fun. I love telling stories. So why not? And the truth is, like, people want you to be vulnerable. They want to hear what you are like as a person. They want to know that, you know, you're not too good for your own, you know, whatever. So yeah, it just kind of happened. And I'm really glad because it's one of my favorite things to do. Even with the live streams, we were live for like 4.5 hours earlier. And at some point I just have to pause everything and go, let me tell you a story real quick. Oh God. And then who only knows what's coming out of my mouth. Yeah,
that's awesome. It does definitely feel unscripted and genuine. That's probably the parts about it that I like. So,
but also accurate. The story you told was wildly accurate. I couldn't believe, like, if that's off the cuff, that's even more impressive. If you hadn't thought about it before you said it, more impressive.
Yeah, no, it'd been a long time since I thought about that one. Jeez.
The cognitive function for you and your brain is just it's the clarity's pretty good, man. Good
I'll
for
tell
you.
you what's crazy. In all seriousness, people like on the channel and in the Discord server, like they always kind of bust my chops about the whole thing. But I have found since doing this that I've been able to. It puts my brain in like this optimal speed where, like, if I'm watching TV or a movie, I'm so bored out of my mind. I have to be doing TV. I got to do a laptop and just multiple things going on. Live streaming is perfect for that. And ever since I started doing it, like I remember people's names, their spouse, their kids' names, like all this stuff. And people are like, how are you doing that? Do you have a spreadsheet? No, but it's like using my brain constantly just seems to keep it running. So it's like they say with older folks, you got to kind of have something that you can be figuring out puzzles and doing this. Because if you don't use it, you lose it. And I feel like that's kind of what I'm experiencing is I'm just putting it to work.
Get that. Get that.
That's cool. Wally, did you have any questions about the development and growth or anything?
Nothing specifically though. This has been really a fascinating conversation to me. I've really enjoyed every listening to your story and listening to the way you've approached the whole building process. I've enjoyed every part of it.
Yeah, I don't know. So Tim has a blog. I don't know if we have anything
Gonna plug
to
that.
discuss on that, but I think we'll get you the link, Ross, so you can check it out. It's and Tim can iterate and describe and talk about that if you want to, Tim.
Right now.
Not to put you on the spot. If you want, I can finish the thought and then we can move on. I'm sorry.
Right now.
Oh no, he's
That's fine. I want to, yeah. I can't, my audio somehow is a little, I can't really hear you that well, but so I don't know if you actually said something to me or not.
your blog.
We were gonna, talk to
Yeah,
us
yeah,
about your
yeah.
blog.
Thought butter. Talk about thought butter.
Thought butter,
Yeah. So I started writing mostly because I enjoy writing and I wanted to get better at it. And you can write any kind of weird stuff on like a Google Doc and, no one sees it. But yeah, just to show up to work and make sure it's clear and concise. And I go back to some of the first stuff I wrote back in, I think it was maybe 2020 or 2021. And it's abysmal. Like I'm embarrassed. But it tracks progress, right? And as far as writing goes, there's infinite ability to get better at that. And so I've done a little bit of fiction, some short stories. I've got some
Nice.
others in the chamber or in the what's the gun part where you hold the bullets? Yeah.
In the chamber.
the chamber. Oh, there's a magazine too, or
Yeah.
the well.
I got some
the
in the
well,
mag. A lot of it has to do with symbolism and history, religion, sort of interpreting and understanding the the minutia of life through grand themes. I'm reading a book right now called Logos Rising, which is kind of like it's talking about the Greek concept of logos, which is a very ancient concept as far as the reason of the universe. And in John chapter 1 talks about Jesus as the logos, as connecting those realities. So anyway, that's sort of like a metaphor. Like I like to understand the reasoning behind things, the symbolism, and how to interpret what happens in America or the world through some of these meta narratives and meta history. And so it's like to spice it up, little jalapenos here and there, some humor, pull in some of my ER experience, but generally it's a heavily a Christian worldview on different things, and sometimes that's not people's particular brand of whiskey, but but like you were talking about, Ross, being um, genuine and vulnerable, and like this is how I see the world. And so yeah, I'm working on a little booklet right now about communion wine. It's a page turner, let me tell you. But that pulls in a lot of symbolism and So anyway, that's kind of my angle.
So you feel like
Well,
since you've started doing this, you feel like you doing it and writing has enriched your life in some way?
Yeah, I think for mostly just um, my relationship with words is kind of
Hmm.
complicated. Uh, I I want to straighten them out and make them do what I want,
Hmm.
and so, but also, you got to keep the dogs from barking, and writing does that.
Yeah.
How can I? Uh, there's a lot of voices coming in, and some of them are oppressive to certain extents, and some of them are untruthful, and so it's sort of speaking back into the void. Um, Regardless of who's listening, regardless of who's reading, it's sort of I need to participate in this cultural conversation, in to whatever degree I've been given the ability to. So yeah.
Do you feel like in doing so it's sharpened you? Like Ross was talking about as he got into the live streams, how he felt something clicking and he was able to interact at a higher level. Do you feel like the process of writing has brought you to some sort of higher level in that regard, or sharpened your senses? Maybe it's a better term.
Um, huh. That's a good question. Sharpening the senses.
Do you
I
know what I
tell
mean
you,
by that? Like in terms of how you interact with the world, or in terms of like how you interpret the world.
yes. I think one of the difficulties that we've experienced maybe in the last couple of decades is a profound loss of meaning,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think it sharpens the senses in the sense of trying to think um, in those meta narratives, like what's the rubric that I use to understand the world, and how can it's a worldview, it's a filter, right? We all have filters through which we interpret reality, and so taking a chunk or a bite off of this crazy thing that just happened, or wars, or what's happening geopolitically, and how do I interpret that through the meta history, the story of creation, the story of um, human history. And so, yeah, like how do we think principally about things in a way that I can apply this principle to this thing that happened back then, and also this thing that's happening now, and project what might happen in the future. I'm not talking about like prophecy. I'm just saying, um, you look at these writers like C.S. Lewis or G.K. Chesterton, and you read their writing and like, how did they predict exactly what's happening right now? Well, it's because they're principled thinkers, and there's meta narratives that arch over history, and if you understand the principles and the way the logos of creation and the reason of it, then it gives you a rubric to help understand what's going on, and sort of like anticipate um, what might be coming, or how I ought to live right now. So yeah, I would say as far as that goes, that it's constantly a process of racking the brain, and like how do I understand this in a way that makes sense but is also um, kind of simple, like metaphorically. Anyway,
Hmm.
yeah, but it's random, man.
Yeah.
I could talk about wine. I'll talk about um, uh, I talked a lot, during COVID. I talked a lot about that, and so just general stuff. No theme as
well,
far as
you're very humble in your description of it, Tim. I think that it's very very thoughtful and complex thoughts also written down, and
Sure.
it's a very good read. And if you get a chance again, Ross, it's thoughtbutter.com,
Okay.
like butter that you spread on bread. And I mean,
yeah.
thanks for sharing that with us, Tim, because I mean, again, I enjoy it. The first few that I've read, but I do have a question for you. How much of the blog is a first draft, like what you actually put on there, and then also, do you ever write something and you reread it before it's published or blog, and you're like, that's not the right way of thinking about this?
Absolutely, man. And unfortunately, a lot of those times it's after I've already published it because I don't know what other writers are like, but I get into it and you can't see it from another person's perspective. You're just so into it, and that you can't see the forest. You can't see the forest for the trees, or however that saying goes.
Yeah.
And so ideally, I think that if I were to finish something, step back, let it cook for 3 weeks, and then come back and sort of have new eyes. Um, it allows you to be like, oh, that is unclear. I made some assumptions that I couldn't back up, or that I need to buttress a little bit with some evidence, or maybe just a sentence or two. Um, but I always feel like writing. I like to be punched when I read something. Um, uh, so not everything like
Come here.
yeah, right. You want to get a couple left hooks in when you write, and that's not digs on people. That's just like short sentences that have punching power that stick with you.
Mhm.
And oftentimes that comes through reduction. I think it was Stephen King said second draft is first draft minus 10%. And another saying is kill your darlings. Those sentences that are like, oh, this is so great, but it just doesn't. It's awkward. It's clunky. It doesn't fit where it should go. There's I don't know if you've heard of the book Elements of Style. I'm sure we all had to read it when we were in high school, but never did. And it has all these really fantastic little just short little paragraphs about, hey, don't do this. Get yourself out of the way when you write. You don't want you don't want the audience to be thinking about you when you're writing something. Um, and I think that's a blog is a little different because it's personal, and
Mhm.
but I think there's some general principles there that, I mean, it's Strunk and White, and I think it's E.B. White who wrote like Charlotte's Web and Trumpet of the Swan. So yeah, but it's enjoyable. It's also it's infuriating all at the same time, but it's something to do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's good that it gives you, again, not a step away from reality, but almost a step
Yeah.
into your own reality and putting your thoughts down. And again,
Yeah.
I'm sure it has, whether it's a frontal lobe, the medulla oblongata, one of those things that doesn't always fire and hit in your normal daily routine. It gets your brain function moving in a different direction.
Yeah.
So,
And I think, Ross, when listening to that story I was listening to about the throwing things out the window, the times when writing comes the easiest is when it's connected to some kind of emotional reality. And the more thought pieces, like the heady pieces, are a little bit trickier to write. So I'm not that good at connecting my emotions to it, and that's something I'd like to get a little bit better at.
yeah.
What is it, Nate? Is this? Oh, go ahead.
How are you going to get better at that?
Well,
Repetition is the process.
yeah. So last year I had a fairly I'm going to say traumatic, difficult time with insomnia and things like that. And one of the things that came out of that is emotions had always been sort of a means of manipulation based on like how I grew up and things like that. And so they were to be avoided. But at the same time, we live in a time of soft men, and I think that you might agree with that. And so there can be sort of a effluence of emotions, and that we're encouraged to just weep. And I don't think that's the way either. I think there is a happy medium of recognizing emotions that can be masculine, um, that can it helps you engage with reality. I mean, we are emotional beings, and so to cut that off completely is wrong. But to think of yourself primarily as an emotional being, unbridled with some kind of reason, is also the wrong way to go. And so, striving to find that happy medium. I read this book called I don't remember what it's called. Voices of the Heart or Pathways of the Heart. I forget. Anyway, he's just recognized like the big 8 emotions and then going through your day, like, okay, taking time. How do I feel about this? Am I happy about it? Am I sad about it? And not assigning judgments to it, just sort of acknowledging it. So that's one thing practically that I try to do. And the one thing that really, really helps is having a daughter.
Hmm.
And I don't know how many of you have daughters, but it's you're face to face when you have a daughter of like, I can be like as tight as the feathers on a duck's back, and all of her beauty and emotions just kind of rolls off. But you know, a girl like that's destined for the pole, right? And so being able to, okay, how can I die to myself in a way and engage with my daughter and be vulnerable. You know, I tell my boys there's a reason why God made your most vulnerable organ to hang in between your legs. It's to remind us to be vulnerable.
That's
As
funny.
he looks around.
Yeah, he looks around to see who's listening. It'll be on YouTube later. I'll
Yeah.
have dozens of
Yeah.
subscribers.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm
Dozens
naked
and
from
I'm
the
publishing that. I'm making a short out of that.
There you go.
Putting it
I'm
on.
naked from the waist down right now, just to remind everyone.
Being vulnerable.
And it's cold out.
Yeah. I have two more questions for you, Ross. One, how involved are you on creating short videos and stuff like that and is that your editor's, duty description? Do they post on IG, TikTok, etc.? And also, you train some Marines, I'm guessing. So is there ever at any point in time where you instruct them to blindfold themselves, go into the closet, hang upside down, assemble and disassemble their weapon until their nose bleeds, just like Major Payne does?
Man shit.
Shit.
As far as shorts go, yeah, it is part of what my editor does. So sometimes I'll identify, like when we go through YouTube Studio, you have kind of access to all the comments that are thrown into the channel, which, depending on the day, is hundreds of them. So we just kind of sweep through, and every once in a while, somebody will put a comment like, "This part made me laugh really hard." So that's kind of a highlight of, hey, let's pull that for a short. And then I'll just send it to her. Hey, let's pull this part for a short. And then she cuts it and launches it. I was on Instagram and I had a hell of a time trying to get it going. So I just let go of it. I was on Twitter until maybe like 3 weeks ago. And I did fairly well. I mean, I was pushing like maybe 5,000 followers or something, and I just finally just deleted it because it's too much nonsense. It's crap. It's just noise. I got rid of it, and boy, do I feel better. And then TikTok, like I can't have TikTok on my phone because of my work with the DoD, but I have posted many shorts on there. I think it's sitting at like maybe 12,000 followers or something. I don't really use it. It was something, but it doesn't really do anything for me, so I just kind of let it go. What I have found though is that shorts on YouTube, the audience is very different, so you don't want to do like shorts in a live stream because you will get the dumpster of humanity coming into your live stream. So don't do that. But as far as getting exposure for your channel, it's a very good thing. It's easy to do. Just cut them and launch them, and then just put the tags on them and just let them do the work.
Yeah, that's good info. That's kind of what I do on the Instagram side and somewhat on the TikTok side, but the TikTok is like my personal account. I haven't changed the name to the podcast, but I'm definitely considering doing that. But yeah, I've been doing that. We have more of a following on IG and TikTok than we do on YouTube specifically. And again, YouTube is just TikTok.
My daughter will.
Well, again, it's my personal name, and I the same clips that I post on Instagram, I post on mine, but I can easily change the name on my TikTok account. And so anybody got any other questions for Ross about the podcast, about his stuff, his content?
feel like I've been talking nonstop for 2 hours.
Well,
Well,
you're
yeah,
happy.
Took
You
hostage.
said-
we've
It's
we've
amazing.
really enjoyed it. We've really enjoyed it. I mean, I'd love to continue talking. I guess our focal point will shift a little bit towards what the main topic that we were going to talk about, which was the terrorist attacks. I don't know if you specifically want to stay on and either listen or give a point of view on it. But you're more than welcome to stay on. From there, we'll shift to sports as well.
Oh God, sports?
Yeah.
Win the points, Ross. Win the points.
So this whole thing, just to give you a synopsis, this whole thing was just I retired last November, so a year ago about. I retired. I think this April, right? I had been tossing around the idea of doing something online, whether it's doing I'm a gamer again, whether it's just doing some game feed, talking about again how to do certain things in certain games that I like to play, and then doing that on the YouTube side and Twitch and live stream. But anyway, we all made arrangements to go to Chet's house for the NFL draft, and I made it up there, and I threw the idea out to them, and they bid it, and of course Wally and Chet were both like, well, Jeff at the time was also like, yeah, that's a really good idea, and Wally was just like, you don't make friends like these today or tomorrow, and old friends are the best friends. So we come together. It's a weekly thing. We talk about everything from parenting to the specific meat and potatoes of what's going on in our nation. Mm-hmm. Sometimes politics, sometimes, but mostly it's centric around sports and the New England sports arena. And then I live in Texas, so I definitely throw out some Texas stuff just because that's clickbait, or at some point, hopefully it will be. It hasn't, it hits on the IG and the TikTok, but yeah. So again, you're welcome to stay on and listen. We'd love to, if you have a topic that you want to specifically come on and talk about, whether it's, we always are welcome to talk about mental health. Like I've posted a few videos that's given us the most influence about mental health specifically. I'm pretty well versed in it as far as what the military does and how to incorporate it into our lives. And again, we're open to talk about anything. We'd love to bring people on and talk about other different topics. Jose specifically, we brought him on to talk mostly about college football, and then he's from the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area, so we talk about his teams and the things that he likes to talk about as well. I make a point to bring that into that discussion into the table. So.
And also, Ross, whatever we can do, like if you're doing a live stream, like reach out to one of us. If you like, if for some reason you think that could somehow be helpful, reach out.
Okay,
we got you.
For sure.
Because you have a lot less subscribers than we do. So when you need our support, you let me know.
Bro, it's 25 years later and you're still a smartass.
Yep. Some things never change, Ross. Some things never.
I can't help it. I bring levity because when it gets I laid out during the whole military conversation. You want to know why? Because I have no fucking business saying a word about it. So then when we get back into other stuff, I start talking.
Oh man, no, it's been good catching up with you guys. I mean, I obviously I can't do every week, right? Because my schedule is nuts.
Yeah.
But I'd be down for coming back on. Now, see, I'll be honest with you, like as far as like some of the darker and more current topics, I have to be super careful with that. And not only from like a YouTube standpoint, but from a DoD standpoint, right? Yeah. So like I can tell you what I do and I can tell you what I teach. We talk about mental health. I can tell you about the Marine Corps. But especially when it comes to like the current event stuff, like it gets really, really tricky. And even from like just my YouTube subscriber position, it's politics and religion, and I have so many cultures that kind of weave through my channel that every single thing I say has to be very, very carefully crafted. As goofy as I am, I still have to be ultra aware of a lot of different cultures, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if I can really say I'd be involved in most topics, but I will say this. If you wanted to link up again over some drinks and talk about the old days, I would 100% be on board with that.
What happened? We missed a story for these guys.
I can make up a story.
No, you remember some shit.
Of course I remember. I remember everything.
Tell us one, because you're good at this.
I'll tell you one story. The first thing I'm going to say is, and thankfully he's probably having a pee now, so I'll say this now. But, when we did senior superlatives, when we graduated.
Oh, yeah.
Chet and I talked about this briefly, but like, Chet, what was yours? Was like class suck up or something? What was it?
Yep.
It's like something like that. I don't remember what it was.
Can I take a break? How? I was swearing at teachers and telling them to go F themselves up to my junior year. How did I get the class suck up? I'm cool with it.
But then in your junior year, you started using a lot more gel and having a part, and you started walking a little fancier. And it worked.
True to that, right?
So Chet got like class suck up or something. Wally got best all around. And Nate got you got gym class hero.
I remember
best build. Best build. Best build. There was no gym class hero.
That's right, because you were flexing, and I think who'd you have on your shoulders? Was it
Sarah Gallant?
It was Sarah Gallant.
Sarah Gallant. Yep.
Yeah.
Her arms were bigger than mine. I don't know how
and then Tim, you got most athletic, didn't you?
I don't remember.
I think you did. I've got the
yearbook. I thought I got best looking.
That could be it. Could be best looking because you had the little hair part. Whatever, jealous.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say was, even though like I got mine, I got like most talented and most spiritual, which they just made up one day, but I got my two. I was still aggravated because Nate got gym class hero and I wanted that one, and Wally got best all around. I was greedy as all hell. So don't tell me that I was humble. I was not humble. I was a complete idiot.
Shit. I sent some pictures. Chet, you should send Ross some if you get a chance. I took a screenshot of your senior photo, Ross, and Chet's and Jeff's and Tim's and Wally's and mine. Put it on our little group chat. Also took a little screenshot of my best build. Wally was two things. He was best all around and friendliest. Yeah, he doubled
man
up.
of depth.
Yeah, he doubled up. And I took Tim was something as well. Jeff was the class flirt, if you can believe. Well, I can believe that.
I can totally believe that. Yeah.
Jeff who?
Jeff
Mach.
Jeff Mach, bro. What's he doing?
He's just being awesome every day.
I spent New Year's Eve with him. I've got a family house.
Wow.
Working with plants. He's happy. Yeah,
he's
doing well for himself.
He's doing great.
Awesome.
Yeah, crushing life.
Yep.
Yeah, crushing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And Jose got the award for not going to our school.
Hey!
Yeah,
that's a win.
He graduated 10 years ahead of us.
I am a bit older than you guys.
You are not quite 10 years, but
you still look better than most of us,
Yeah,
except for Ross.
Yeah. So that was.
But I'm humble.
I'm sure we all have some stories about Lenny Levine.
I missed that dude. Is he still alive?
Oh yeah, I see him on occasion. I used to have softball games with him. He's doing well. He's still active, still moving around. He's still the same exact guy. Hasn't changed a bit.
Ross, remember our project with the pool?
Say that again?
Pool.
You remember Levine, that pull-out drawer he had in his desk that had the bathing suit, the women in bathing suits in it?
What?
I have never heard anything about that.
I think I found it on accident. I was up in his desk. I don't know where he was. And that little flat, it's like the writing thing you slide out. It's just like, looks like a cutting board.
Yeah.
Yep.
I pulled it out once and there was just all these pictures of like swimsuit models.
Now, there are plenty of teachers in our high school I would have guessed that of. He was not one.
No.
But I'm going to not put respect on his name for that.
Yeah,
I liked him.
Ross, I can understand why you would not want to talk about certain subjects. This is only something that I started doing because I disconnected from the uniform and all that. So I completely understand. Just to give you an idea, like some of the topics that we will discuss that we have on the like in the Rolodex, which is coming up. We'll be talking about like your final destination and like your wants and your wants from your not just your will and your last will and testament, but like, do you want to be resuscitated if you're on life support? Do you know, like, and also when do you have those? My daughter is like 26 and I haven't had that conversation with her, but like Wally and everybody else has younger kids. So like, when do you have that conversation about how you want to be handled when the time comes so that again, it doesn't, if you take that decision away from them, that way there's no guilt, there's no remorse, and like they think that they're doing something that you don't want them to do. So that's one of the topics that we'll be discussing, along with like some financial wellness and advice, like what would I give my 20-year-old self? What would I want them to do in this time, in this economy? How would I handle things? And then also at some point, we're going to talk about divorces and why they're not amicable. And different states have different ways of handling that, and also custody with the kids and all that stuff. So, okay. And then Tim always brings a different perspective to it, and we haven't got anything on the schedule as far as what he wants. Oh, I'm sorry, it was the LGBTQ and how do we as parents handle those situations with our younger kids. Wow. And also family members. How do we talk to our family members that are part of that community? And we're not sure if we want our kids subject to that just yet. How do we handle those boundaries and borders and open discussions about how to handle those sort of things?
Wow. That's quite the Rolodex.
Sounds like something, Ross, if you don't want to get canceled, get the fuck away from us.
I'm just going to be over here.
But yeah, go ahead.
This was really fun, and I think Chet's right. That's a little too out there for me. But I'm curious though, like Nate, I'm sure as you keep pushing this, with you guys keep doing this, and if it's going to be the 5 of you or whatever, like any questions that you have that I can help in any way, like please let me know. Like of course, like we go way back. I mean, I've known you guys since we were like fetuses. So any way that I can help, I can give you suggestions, links, whatever it is, like let me know and I'd be happy to help. And then absolutely call me when we pull out the yearbooks and the bourbon and we go for 2 hours, because I am on board.
Ross, question number 1. Who looks the most in shape? Do you see my skinny arm?
Skinny is a shape. Skinny's a shape. You don't have to be judgmental. You don't have to be judgmental right now.
I don't know. Wally's got the hitman thing going on.
He does.
I'm kind of digging his chili.
I like it.
Of that answer, thank you. That's what I'm shooting for.
The hitman.
The hitman look.
Hey-o! That's what he's shooting for.
That's it. Nice. No, this was good, man. I like catching up with you cats. And Jose, it was good to meet you, brother. And like I said, thank you for your service. And I'm glad we got to at least catch up for a couple hours. And I hope this will not be the last time that I talk to you cats.
Likewise.
Yeah, I hope it isn't either, man. Definitely.
Ross, you and I will do some late night drunken FaceTime, if nothing else. We do that sometimes.
I'm down.
Yeah. All right.
Chet will be.
See you later.
Chet will be contacting you to try and get you on every show.
Oh yeah.
just so you know, and I second that. But like, when at any chance you can, again, you can come on and talk about what you want to talk about, and then if you could, give us a heads up. That way we can, if we need to educate ourselves, so that we can also have an educated conversation with you on that specific topic. But anything's open. It's an open forum. It doesn't need to be like a trending topic. If you wanted to come on and talk about one of your videos that you posted and how funny you thought all the comments were, like I'd love to hear some of that actually.
Yeah, that'd be great. Actually, that really would.
Okay. All right, well, I will take you up on that. I'm just going to talk about me for the whole next show is going to be the Ross cast.
We like it. We don't mind.
Yeah, we
All
don't
right.
mind.
Well, good luck with your sports ball talk. I have nothing to contribute to that, so good luck.
Yeah. Okay. All right,
All
man.
right.
It was
Take
good
care,
catching
See you
up
fellas.
with
later,
you.
buddy.
Take
Love you,
care,
man.
man.
Love you,
Yeah.
man. Thank you.
Pleasure meeting you. Pleasure meeting you, brother.
God, I
All
love
right.
that.
Yeah, that was good. That was a lot of fun. We definitely need to do that more often.
So
But
Nate,
I
for
can
him, I
definitely
think
understand. What's that?
I was gonna say for him, he did this whole BTS thing. I'm curious why, he didn't do the equivalent of what are your boys from up there with the Wahlbergs? New Kids on
The
the Block.
Wahlbergs.
Yeah,
Uh,
new
They
kids
don't
on the
represent
block.
me.
hey,
They do
hey,
not represent me, the Wahlbergs. Let me tell you that.
hey,
Yeah.
they
Why
were
didn't you
BTS.
ask that?
They were BTS before BTS, so
Yeah, why
Well,
didn't you ask
well, Nate,
that?
you were shotgunning questions. I was like, he's just trying to keep up with Nate's questions. So,
I
you
was
know,
just wondering the whole time, Korean pop, is that north or south? I couldn't.
South
It's
Korea.
south. South, yeah. That is
Yeah.
Yeah, I
that's
know.
not
I
allowed.
was,
Not
Tim,
allowed.
I
Not
think Kim
allowed
Jong
in
Un
Tim,
was
I
there.
right.
got you. That's funny.
what would
He
North
was.
Korea
Hey,
pop be like? It would be kind of fun.
It's
hey,
actually a pop, like
they may
a trigger.
consume it too.
Pop,
They
pop,
may.
pop.
You never know. They may be spies. You never know.
That's a good
Yeah.
point.
All right, so we can move on to the topic that we are going to discuss, which was basically the terrorist attack in New Orleans that happened New Year's
Motherfuckers.
Day, early New Year's Day, late New Year's Eve. 15 fatalities, 35 injuries. It might have gone up since I wrote this little
Look
script.
right now.
I'm not really sure, but again, the dude is a 42-year-old man, got out of the army, and again, the whole army background. He was an HR specialist, never not a hardened soldier. Probably his PTSD was from processing paperwork, not
So,
you
so,
know.
so Nate, you're saying he's basically a bitch.
Yes.
I agree.
Absolutely. I
Let's
think
move
Jose
on.
will second that. Jose will second that all day and twice
We'll be
on
polite about him.
Sundays.
Everybody has their place.
It's true, but
Not everybody was meant to be out the front line. So.
it's
I mean, as
true,
you can,
but
I mean,
no.
nothing against the guy, I mean, I had nothing against AHR people, and unfortunately, they're going to get it. They're going to look like weak-minded people who can be radicalized. So, you know, it
Yeah.
is what
Well,
it
I
is.
mean, it's a bad light on anybody in the army, to be honest.
Oh
Like
yeah,
it,
yeah,
Yeah.
obviously, yeah.
oh, but
Particularly on Fort Bragg. I mean, it seems like a lot of that stuff seems to, or a higher percentage of these army turned terrorists seem to be associated with Fort Bragg. It seems. Is that right?
I know he.
What are
Yeah,
other examples?
I know he served at Bragg, but so did our buddy, friend of the show, Jose. He
Yeah, I
seems
spent 10
okay.
years on Fort
I
Bragg. I will
right,
say,
right.
I spent
Nothing
10
against
years on
Fort.
Fort Bragg, so it's nothing against it. I think that there's definitely the mentality there is something to be said, especially when I was there. The standard was the standard. Didn't matter what your rank was. The other thing was, they were very much of the mindset. You got to suck it up and drive on. You don't go to sick call unless your leg is hanging off or your arm's
Uh,
hanging off or and so they there was a lot of I can see some people who if your mental state isn't your mental constitution is anything near where it needs to be, you can be pushed and feel beaten down and all that stuff. I think Fort Hood it probably has
yeah.
more of the killings, associated. Now we get more of the racist killings or the
Mm,
hateful ones.
Yeah.
So, um, so I'm not quite sure how those all correlate, but
mm,
yeah, I mean, but you got to remember too. I think the ones that aren't Fort Bragg or Fort Hood or the big bases don't get the publicity because who the hell knows, about Fort Carson? Who the hell knows about, some small base in, Fort Huachuca or what? Nobody cares, but Fort Bragg resonates. It's known worldwide. Fort Hood's known. Fort Drum, certain bases are known, so it's kind of clickbait, you
mm.
know.
Yeah,
So did this
definitely.
gentleman? Didn't this guy have a? Did he have a Palestine flag in the back? Is that what I read?
An ISIS flag
ISIS.
in the back of
Okay.
his truck. Yeah, and it was on, it was on the tailgate, but it was part of the tow system, the tongue on the tow
Oh,
hitch,
okay.
and he had it flying. And I'm sure you guys saw videos like there. I have the timeline and everything. I don't think we need to go over that, but I
Yeah.
mean, seeing video like if people want to do evil things, like you can only be so vigilant and prevent so many things from happening. If people want to do things like this, it's hard to prevent things from happening in this light. Like there were barricades. Literally, he ran over people to get past the barricade and then continue moving. So it's not anything that the law enforcement did or did not do. This was just somebody that wanted to commit suicide by law enforcement and wanted to hurt some people in the process, unfortunately.
See, I was kind of
I don't know.
surprised. Has anybody spent time down in New Orleans? I've been down there a couple times, and both times I've been down there, Bourbon Street specifically was so cordoned off. They had these big, like, those cement steel pillars they install that they can move up and down to drive over. Like, you couldn't get anywhere near Bourbon Street. I was there in some random weekends and random months, not anywhere near high ticket times like this. So I was kind of surprised to see that, as well as multiple cops parked every possible route in and out of the city, or in and out of Bourbon Street, especially. I was kind of surprised by that. And it was the second. There was another ex-military attempted terror attack, I would argue.
Trump Tower?
Not Trump
Yeah,
Tower,
the
but
Cybertruck.
it was the Cybertruck. More came out about that just before we came on. Sean Ryan released his manifesto and kind of his stance on why he wasn't. I think the bomber said something to the effect of it wasn't a terrorist attack; it was a wake up call. But again, so now that's the third attempted two mass casualty events. We had Maine. The Lewiston shooting was an ex-military guy as well up here, where 18 people were killed. I don't know, and we've talked circles around this, and again, it concerns me, but it feels like we just continue to accept this as part and parcel of kind of living in America, and we're going to move on to the next one, and we just gloss over it. It's like it just, you don't even pay attention to it anymore. It's on to the next mass casualty event. It's happening everywhere. It's happening prolifically all the time.
No, Wally, with respect to what you're saying, I think you're right. But for most people, but for me, I'm just going to give my personal experience. Every single fucking day that I send my son down and my daughter down to the school bus, I worry what's going to happen. Every single day, I worry that like some fucking asshole is going to do something stupid because they think they're more important than everybody else. And it literally, like, as I was saying earlier, like, I'm not worried so much. Like, I get the PTSD thing from like the being in the army and being in the Marines and all that stuff. Mine is from being a kid. And I'm like, I would be the worst parent in the world if I'm not there for them when they need something. And we are living in a world now where, like, if I go to New Orleans and I bring my kids with me because we're gonna have a good time, and some shitbag decides he's gonna like drive through barricades and like kill us all, like, I'm literally getting fearful of going anywhere else other than what's in my domain, because these fucking crazy assholes are out there
Everywhere.
willing to kill people for whatever ideology they have. And honestly, fuck them.
Well, do you you said crazy. What do you mean by that?
Anyone who's willing, Tim, to kill someone for their cause, if it's ideological, I think that's crazy. And you'll have a hard time convincing me otherwise.
Well, crazy in the sense of out of touch with reality, crazy in the sense of psychologically unhinged. Like, is that what you mean? Or could someone like Ted Kaczynski, he's extremely intelligent man. Was he crazy?
Yes. If he went in there because he was so left and liberal, he was so pissed off about whatever was coming next, religious, whatever, he goes in there and he decides, I'm going to plant a bomb. and I'm going to kill a bunch of people to prove my point. What a fucking narcissist. Like, it can be done different ways. And if you decide on your own, or if you decide that you're going to get, I don't know, in some sort of cult-like thinking that you're going to go do something violent and kill innocent people, yeah, I think you're fucking nuts.
Yeah.
You
Go
disagree
ahead,
with
go
that,
ahead.
Tim? I'm
What's that?
curious. I'm curious your stance on that. Do you disagree with that? I think crazy.
Um,
Crazy is an umbrella term, obviously, and there's certainly
yeah.
degrees to that. So it's
No,
not a yes or no question.
yeah, I mean, I have no problem with saying that people like this are crazy. Um, I think it's also important to understand that generally a lot of these terrorist attacks um, come from an ideology that is logically coherent based on their presuppositions. And um, uh, there's an ideological war that's happening, and you have to in order to effectively combat things like that, you have to have an ideological counterpoint that is able to handle that kind of craziness. Um, so uh, if you teach your kids that um, you evolved from some kind of primordial sludge and that there is really no meaning to life, and then you add to that some like Nietzschean will, might makes right, then you have a completely non-crazy reason for doing what you do. So
Or,
uh,
or, or you teach people that if someone lives this life where they think there's no point to it and they are not worth living here, you could also feel like they're on the other side of it too. Like, it's so simple to me. If you're going to kill innocent people, it's wrong. I don't think it's a conversation.
well,
You're your ideology.
it certainly is a conversation because the moment you employ some kind of moral claim, you have to back it up. And you can't just say that's because that's the reason we just don't kill people. Well, why? If you go back to the French Revolution, you're in my way and your particular ideology is harmful. And so you're not listening to me. The only logical step is to take you out of the way. And so when you talk about if something's right or wrong, you have to be able to back that up with objective moral claims.
And would you not argue that a very basic building stone of having a moral structure in life would be to don't kill innocent people, right? Would you say? I mean, if you're gonna claim a moral argument, that strikes me as a fairly central one.
Yeah.
I would definitely agree with that. While Tim finishes chewing his food, like,
Yeah.
yes, I would agree
I got-
with that thought, Wally. Like, definitely, it's not your thoughts and your beliefs. It's the actions that you're willing to take to express those that make you crazy, I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but actions always come from beliefs.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah,
well,
so and
I
if
will say
actions,
this. I will
Jose.
say this, I will say this, Wally.
Mhm.
When I agree with what you're saying, but in the same token, if you believe enough in your ideology and your belief that this person is amoral because they don't side with you, then they're saying, well, hey, it's a justified action. That doesn't make it right, not by the rest of us, but in their mind, in their whatever their group they're in, that may be justification for them for their action.
For sure.
Doesn't make it right,
Sure.
and so that's where I think Tim's coming from is that you have to take it from their perspective where they're so I get where they're coming from. And again, and I will say this to backtrack to when you guys said all this stuff is happening. I will say there was more shootings in the 70s than there is now. But there was not 24-hour news, national news back then. So we weren't aware of it. There was
Talk about the news. Sorry.
you sit down and you look at like the mass murders, the Manson murders, all that stuff. It was geographically terrifying. But people on the East Coast had no clue. It took them days to catch up. It took them weeks to catch up. Now everybody wants to be first. And it's constantly being pounded on you over and over and over again, almost to the point where it makes people paralyzed with fear. Because you turn on CNN, you turn on Fox, you turn on these acts of violence that are happening, they stay on over and over. I mean, look, we have Netflix with one of the top shows is the Menendez brothers. I mean, that's what people are watching. But I didn't really pay attention to Menendez brothers when it happened because it was in California and it was irrelevant to me. And the news where I was at didn't really care because it was irrelevant to us. So I think now because of news and the access to all the information that's out there, and then people getting on their smartphones and looking everything up on the internet, and it paralyzes people with fear because, so, as I hate to say it, but sometimes ignorance is bliss. When you don't know, you're less fearful. You can go out, and how many kidnappings were happening all over the place, but nobody knew because there just wasn't the national media. Now it's all over the place. Anything happens, you know. So I think that the information, the availability of information for stuff kind of makes it seem like it's worse. But I think I would like to look up the statistics and see, is shootings up worse? Is now these things with these random acts where these guys driving trucks and all that stuff, that's a whole other animal. But I think that if we look at gun violence just by itself, or, drunk driving and all that stuff, let's look at it statistically. Let's go back and look over the data. It's one of those things I'd like to go look at, say, hey, is it worse now or is it better now? And can we look that up?
I think we should. I think what we would find, though, is that if I lived myself, being true to myself, if I lived in 1920, 1930, 1817, in the future, my thought would be killing innocent people to prove your point is fucking wrong. That's my fundamental belief. Like Jose, you protected me from some assholes out here with their ideology coming into my land and fucked me up. And thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah. No, but I'm not disagreeing with you on that. It's wrong. What I'm saying is their mental state is, because this is what I believe, they may not feel like they're doing anything wrong. And that's the crazy. That's where you say the crazy part is, and that could be by the rest of us, our standard is crazy.
Right.
But to them, they're just thinking about it logically.
Right. And neither Jose nor I are being moral relativists by saying they have a logical worldview that makes sense to them. Because I can sit here and say it is objectively wrong and evil for them to do that. But I think we pay far too little attention to the philosophical soil that we all grew up in. And our generation is grew up in a different soil than this next generation, which is impoverished with, I think, objective moral values. And so when you look at the philosophical soil that is at work, it's that's where things start. There was some author that said all the travesties of the Holocaust didn't come from the guns of the Nazis. It came from the desks of the philosophers that preceded them. And so you have like Nietzsche and the Übermenschen and might makes right, essentially, the will to power. This is just a train of philosophical thought that very logically ends up in a situation like this. And so I just think we need to understand what's in the soil underneath us that can bring about these kinds of actions.
Yeah, I think we should understand that. Philosophical differences, religious differences, again, I'm not sure why I have to say this again, should not end in the death of innocent people.
Yeah, but Chet, the thing is you're speaking from a particular philosophical perspective, and you're employing objective moral claims. Like it is, and so then you have to hang that on something. and I don't want to sound like the definition of a fanatic is someone who won't change his mind and can't change the subject. But I think the point is that in order to say something's objectively wrong, the next question is, well, says who? Says you?
Okay.
Why should I care what you think?
Okay, so let's dig in. Let's dig into that a little bit more. So, if you're looking for moral structure, moral guidance in regards to right versus wrong, where do you look? Right, it seems like an obvious argument towards religion, right? Towards the structure that religion would provide. Which, again, the 7 commandments. I believe one of them is about murdering, isn't it? Like, you've been the one quoting the good book. I'm pretty sure one of them. And go any direction you want, it leads back to killing innocent people is wrong.
Yeah.
Wally, I see you
Yes.
Are you about to catch on fire quoting the good book?
I know. Listen. Don't get
can't really. I'm not really sure what that smoke is behind you, or
please.
I'm not one to talk, but I definitely agree with you. I
get what you're saying. I mean, the argument is like it's morality is subjective, and when you get to enter into the gauge right versus wrong, especially in the world we live now, that everyone's got a different perspective on what's right and wrong, and my right's different than your right, and it may be completely contradictory. I get that, but we have to have a commonality, and there's got to be certain things where you can say, okay, black and white, right versus wrong. Let's start there, right? Like there are some issues that are that fundamental. And murder innocent people, from my perspective, is that line, right? You murder innocent people, and our government's guilty of it too, right? And in doing so, I would argue they're wrong, even if in their mind the end justifies the means, or anybody for that matter. Again, if you're killing innocent people, I am of a mind where that is wrong, and I hope that that's a good place to start as a society.
I think that I don't know. I guess as an individual, killing innocent bystanders is just that is a sign of weakness, as it shows in the individual, and also that brings about the question of there is a huge morality concern with that, and that person is crazy. The person that wants to do harm to others that are not bothering them at the time. If I bother somebody because they're bothering me, that's not crazy. If I get into a fight with somebody that wants to get into a fight with me, that's not crazy. The actions innocent bystanders might think that that's crazy. Like, what are those weird guys doing over there punching each other in the face? Don't they know no one wins a fight? We all go home battered and bruised, and one might have a stroke of the ego. The other might be taken down a notch as far as an alpha male is concerned. But like that specific instance wouldn't be viewed as crazy as far as, that those individuals are crazy. It's a crazy action, but we're not crossing the line of morality because we both interacted in that instance, and we're both essentially consensual adults, right? In that action.
You were willing participants.
Willing participants. Yeah. But those that, again, bring harm to others that are unsuspecting, that are unwilling, and don't want that brought upon them. Again, that's why we call it an act of terror, right?
Yeah.
It is crazy. It is not something that we want anybody to entertain doing. And again, that's why I go back to, you're right, Tim, beliefs are basically spawn actions, right? But when our beliefs spawn actions that harm others and do harm to others, then that's crazy. It's immoral, and you are a psychopath. And I will 9 times out of 10, if I have the opportunity to, I will end your life, step over your dead corpse, double tap as I'm walking over you, and then where's the next one? Like,
you've said that about 3 times tonight, and I'm starting to get a little nervous.
You got
I told you I was fired up earlier. You guys called me the gym class hero.
We got a little fight over text earlier, and he's threatened to double tap me a couple times.
That's my fault.
Chet,
my fault.
You saved that text, Chet. You saved that text.
It's my
It
fault.
wasn't you, Wally. It wasn't you, Wally.
It was me. It's my fault.
You're not going to do anything crazy and harm others.
That said, did Ross tell any stories about you guys that didn't involve me?
No, and thank God he didn't. Frankly, I was a little comfortable when you guys started asking those questions. I don't want to hear stories about me. That's not what I come here for.
So
We're gonna get him on here to tell us a story
Wally's like
about
the past
you.
is the past. Let
That's
it there.
that's your mission, Chet.
No,
You're
but
not
What's
going to
your
find
mission,
much
Chet?
from my high school days. Like, I was
no,
pretty
but
vanilla.
Ross, but
You're going to talk
Jose,
about Tim,
you would
Tim
be
and I
fully
dressing in
entertained.
moo-moos in my aunt's house and running around the house with a cube of Mountain Dew.
Which
Yeah,
one?
doing wrestling moves,
Do you guys
talking about
remember
The
that?
Rock and
I
Stone
think
Cold.
Oh, I
were
remember
we
that.
all there? I know Nate was there. Tim was there. I think Jeff
Yeah.
was there. Tim, you were there,
Yeah.
right?
Chad was there too, I think.
I think Chad was there. We found these old moo-moos in my aunt's closet. And she had a mansion at the time, an absolute giant house with a pool.
Oh, in
Creepy
Franklin?
giant house.
It's a creepy giant house. And
In Franklin, right?
And we had like all my siblings had like rager parties. Like the four of us got together with a cube of Mountain Dew and chased each other in the house and played hide and seek.
Man, we were not cool.
No, we were not.
Hey, don't disregard. That's pretty cool. Those are good
We
fun.
had a lot of fun. We had a lot
The
of fun.
not cool people. Yeah, trust me.
Okay,
There's a
guys.
lot of people who are trying harder to that don't make good memories. You know what I mean?
We,
So
we
that
missed a
good
chance
point.
to become alcoholics.
I will say this: if I was around, I would probably participate.
I like that, Jose. I like that.
We got a moo for you, Jose.
I would have been all about it. So
If there's ever a point, Nate, where this podcast gets big and you're looking for merch, might I suggest it on a moo? Whatever the title is, on a moo.
Good suggestion. I like that. I like
What
that.
what is a muumuu, Wally?
I know it as like almost like a house gown. Like it's like a long bathrobe, not a bathrobe because I've always known it as a kind of a pullover, but it's like a long sleeping robe kind of. We wear it at home at night.
Yeah.
Hey, that was the grandpa keeper.
I can't
Hey,
drink
grandpa can just
Mountain
flip
Dew
it up,
anymore.
get some, and then flip it back down.
Yep.
Okay.
Mountain Dew is horrendous for your body. It's like worse than alcohol. So I can't drink it anymore, but I wish I could. I miss the taste. I miss Mountain Dew.
I still
really-
drink it. I actually just got back on it. Yeah, I
you
got
never-
back on it.
Mountain
you
Dew
got
was like
back on it.
Monster Dew was like Monster and all that before Monster.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's pretty
it was.
good.
Certainly
Yeah.
was.
Mountain Dew does not taste as good as it did back then.
No.
I haven't, Tim, I
Really,
haven't
I
had
still
one
love it. I
in
love it.
like 20 years.
Has anyone tried the hard Mountain Dew yet? Like they sell alcoholic Mountain Dew. Have you seen that? They do.
Lolly, don't tell me that. You're gonna tempt me. You're gonna tempt me.
No, they sell it. I haven't brought myself to buy it, but they sell it.
I'm gonna look for
Like
it.
Four
Is it
Locos.
like a malt liquor hard or
I'm
like
not entirely
seltzer?
certain. It's yeah.
I'm gonna look for it.
I will never try cocaine, but if somebody cut cocaine with Mountain Dew, I might try it.
Same, Tim, and we'll do it together. We'll do it together.
I had this 76-year-old dude came into the ER and he came in high on cocaine. I was like, at that age, it's like a suicide attempt.
Yeah.
He was 76,
76,
high
yeah.
on cocaine.
Yeah.
Oh, question: was his name Mel Bowen? I'm just kidding. My dad's calmed down quite a bit.
Oh, gosh.
High on cocaine.
I mean, you can't imagine that was his first time either. If you get to 76 and you've been using cocaine regularly your whole life,
Yeah.
have at it. Who the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna do? It's gonna kill you.
Yeah.
All right, man.
That's
Go for it. Yeah. Have your day.
Talk
Have
about
your day.
DNR, man.
It's probably his
Hey,
normal
Nate.
state.
Nate, we let it get off the rails. I'm sorry. We always do this. What's
No,
our
you're good.
subject?
You're good. Just gonna point out some facts. We all saw the Cybertruck attack in Vegas.
Yep.
Ironically, we all know that. I don't know if, and also ironically, there's this YouTuber called Whistling Diesel, and he did a performance review on the Cybertruck, and I watched this 2 days before all this happened. And it like he was doing a bunch of stuff, literally putting explosives on the truck. He was comparing it to a Ford F-150, and he put an explosive on the tailgate of the truck, and on the outside of it, not on the inside, but he put it on the outside, and he blew up the explosive, and there was literally no damage. There was a small little impact, but it structurally the whole thing was intact. He put it on the F-150. It blew half of the tailgate off, half of the bumper off because it's made of aluminum. And the
Oh,
Cybertruck was just a tank. All the stuff that he was trying to do to it. Now, the funny thing about it, and the funny thing about the reports, like the firefighters couldn't get the doors unlocked to open the doors on the Cybertruck. And every time this kid, he was doing a door slam test, and he was slamming all the doors, and he could not get the doors open whatsoever. So I thought that was pretty ironic. Like the locking mechanism just would not unlock. And anyway, it turns out that it's not a Cybertruck; it's a cyber tank. And Elon Musk's pitch before he even put it into production, was that it's bulletproof. We all know the
Yeah.
YouTube where the video where he threw the rock at it and it wasn't supposed to shatter, but it did. But anyway, it was a very structurally sound vehicle, and that's what actually potentially saved some lives due to the force was kept inside, or not inside, but because of the structure of the vehicle, the blast was directed directly up instead of out because of the truck. So it potentially saved lives. And
Do we know, I heard something about there being fireworks, or was it C4, or what was it? Do we know?
they said mortar fireworks, which is basically mortar fireworks is, the biggest type of firework that you can get. And if you put enough of them together, they can create some havoc. I don't know if you guys saw, like, some potentially due to New Year's Eve, one of the biggest fireworks that was set off was in Colorado, I believe. Tim, you might know about this. It was literally like a 2,000-pound explosive that was detonated. It was detonated in a tube that was, I think they said it was like 3,000 feet long. But they needed
Where were you on New Year's Eve, Tim? By the way,
and it obviously the explosives shot it through the tube directly up, and then it went off, and it was the biggest firework known to man, apparently. But I believe it was in Colorado somewhere. But yeah, if you put enough of that stuff together, it can be very destructive and create a volatile situation for sure. Yeah. And he had a bunch of more gas, something else to ignite and make the blast bigger, combustion, right? So the good thing about, again, the way he had everything set up, which he knows a thing or two. I didn't read his manifesto that you were talking about, Wally.
It just came out a couple hours ago.
Yeah,
Sean Ryan released it.
If the back of the truck was enclosed just like the vehicle itself, it probably would have been even much worse, because again, when you have that force combined with combustion or something to encase it, everything that's encasing it is just going to become shrapnel, right? Maybe that was his intent, and he didn't think about the bed itself being actually, an open source, so to speak, where pressure can escape. But yeah, he was former special forces. Apparently the two things that tie it together, or the one thing that tied those two incidences together, is they both used the Toro app to rent the vehicle, and they both departed from Colorado.
It's like no ideology, nothing else except for the Toro app.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, all right.
And one left from Denver was the other one. It was in Houston, so they both weren't rented from the same location. But senseless tragedies.
It's a byproduct of a larger issue. Like we talked earlier about the increase in suicide among veterans, but there's also an increase in suicide among men in general. Certainly, men in their 20s and 30s, I think, at a higher rate than others. And to me, it speaks to a lack of being able to have these really important conversations on a public stage. In a lot of regards, the masculine kind of standpoint, the masculine viewpoint has been ostracized and pushed off to the side. So there are a lot of these guys of that mentality that don't know what to do with that. Like they talk about DEI. Tim's touched on this a lot as well. I think that we need to be able to have more important conversations on the national stage. We need to be able to have to bring apart these people are stuck in these echo chambers where you only hear opinions that echo what you're saying and further push you. We need to be able to sit across from each other and have really uncomfortable, hard conversations, because I think it's through those conversations that the extremists get moderated. Because if you can have an intelligent conversation with someone of an opposing viewpoint, you're like, oh, well, wait a minute. They make you think about things in a certain way that I didn't think about before. And I think that we, as a country and a society, have shied away from that, and we've tend to, again, echo chamber. We're looking for our audience, and we're gonna present our set of facts exclusively to that audience. It pays well, right? I mean, I think you make good money off of that, but we're not having the hard conversations that we need to have. We're not having the debates that we need to have. We're just talking to our own people. Our government's more polarized than it's ever been. Everything's directly down party line. We're not willing to reach across and have conversations. And I think all these are byproducts of that inability to talk.
That's our podcast, Wally. You just found our niche right there. Look at me. Tim, I love Tim. We can disagree. I still love the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Tim, you don't have to love me back. It's okay.
Me? Yeah. It's my New Year's resolution to be more disagreeable. So
that's a good one. Yeah. I need to be more disagreeable. Nate might disagree with that, but I think I need to be more disagreeable.
But that's our podcast. I think we can still do it. We can still do it when no one else can. And Jose, by the way, you do a great job of actually naming the person you agree with, because it brings them into like, oh, okay, so I got someone at this point, but 2 seconds later, you're gonna be like, but I disagree on this. That's exactly what we need.
Well, I think that the issue in the cancel culture is just a terrible culture.
I agree.
I think that your skin should be thick enough that you can listen to someone who is on the polar opposite of you.
Yeah.
You might find that you may have 1 or 2 points where you may both agree on. Say, hey, okay, well, at least we have something in common. But when you cancel them, when you basically shut them out, you're basically closing yourself off to the world, and that's what we've done. I get a lot of grief because I don't like DEI. I don't like affirmative action. That basically you're telling me I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not able to achieve at the same level. So to me, I take it personal. I don't like it, and people will say, "Oh, no, I, I don't agree with reparations because guess what? Everybody in the world has been enslaved at one point or another. So there'd be a whole lot of reparations going around the whole world. Let it go. It's over. Move forward. Are we better now than we were 100 years ago? Are we better now than we were 200 years ago? Absolutely.
Yes, we are.
Absolutely better. And growing up as a man, and the irony of it is my brothers and sisters, if you see them, they look like my older ones look like white people. My brother has hazel eyes. He's lighter than you, Chet. I swear to God. If you see them, you'll be like, they would pass off. And when we would go to school and I would show up and they go, who's that? That's your brother. They're like, your brother? I think, wait a minute, he's brown. Yeah. Well, Puerto Rican. Yeah, that's how we come, where it's hit or miss. And it was always a little harder for me. It was always a little different for me. I was always treated differently. But I didn't make excuses. I just said, hey, you know what? I just got to grind now. Now it's time to get in and dig deeper. And there was times I would be on the phone, and I literally dated one of my teacher's daughters, and I would call her house every day, and we'd sit down, and the lady thought I was the greatest thing in the world. Oh, he's so nice. But I didn't call myself Jose. My nickname was Tim. I was a small baby. They called me Tiny Tim, so I went by Tim. So she was like, oh, this Tim guy. Oh, she thought I was the greatest guy in the world until she realized it was me. And then all of a sudden it was unacceptable for her daughter to date me because I was brown. Again, this is in the 80s when everything is still evolving. I didn't take it personal, and I knew that it wasn't the daughter. And I'm still friends with her daughters to the day. But the point being is that was just the world I lived in. I had to accept my reality. I didn't make excuses for it. I didn't pout about it. I didn't cry about it. I just knew that, hey, if it came down, even when I played sports, I knew if it came down to me and a white guy and we were equal, he was going to get the nod. So I had to be better. I had to have no choice. I had to excel. I had to be, and I was a little arrogant. I was a little, I was the whole Miami Hurricanes of the 80s. I bought into that. I was a shit talking, finger waving, all kinds of stuff. So, I was pretty arrogant, but I knew that I had to be, and it was a chip on my shoulder
Mhm.
that made me that way because things weren't equal. But I was okay with that because I understood, hey, if I can knock down this wall and say, hey, well, this guy's good enough, maybe that'll open the door for the next guy. That's was my whole mentality with everything was, it's not for me. I've got to push the boundaries. I've got to make people say, hey, you know what, this guy's pretty damn good. I got to give him a chance. So the next guy that comes along, they're going to give him the benefit of the doubt because, like, hey, the last guy we got was pretty good. That's always how I approached it. So, and that's one of those things where I look at, and I just like I think with this whole woke cancel culture, it doesn't allow for that. It doesn't allow for us to go through these
Absolutely right.
stressful times. It doesn't allow us to dig in, and sometimes we have to see ourselves and see the ugliness of ourselves to understand that, hey, wait a minute, maybe I am being, what everything I'm saying that person is, I'm just as bad. And we need to be able to be put that mirror and look into it and see the harsh truth.
So can I try to make sure I understand this right? You worked your ass off, right?
Yeah.
And then you got lots of family members who look differently, all that kind of stuff. You just decided, fuck it, I'll just on merit alone find my way.
Well, one of the things was I was very lucky that in my grandfather, he was of the mindset that no excuses.
Yeah.
And I looked like my grandfather. He was just like no excuses. I get it. I don't care. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to, you can boo-hoo about it. This is the world you live in.
Mhm.
But when you look at things, people are gonna do whatever they're gonna do, but you control how you react to it. Now, sometimes I was a little angry, a little violent, a little feisty, and so to speak, I fought a lot, and that was my reaction to it. But one thing I learned was, hey, I control it. I'd never said, oh, that person made me fight. No, if I got into a fight, it was because I allowed myself to get into it. I never blamed that person. I said, you know what? He pushed my buttons and I failed because I didn't control myself. And I think that's where I learned it, over the years, especially as I got older. It's like I can control it. You can call me whatever you want. As long as you don't put my family in harm's way or anything, then I won't have to kill you. But you can say what you want to me. I don't care anymore. But when you're young and you're gonna, hey, and I was one of I was smaller than my brothers, so it was always, and it was funny because my brothers, they never saw it because to them it was like, oh, but I just tell them, and it's funny we have these conversations now. My brothers are like, man, I never realized that. And the funniest thing I ever had was I went with my brother to his girlfriend's house, my oldest brother, Mike, and Nancy Bruder, the name was Bruder. And it was funny. I showed up with him and they're like, who's this? Oh, that's my brother. They were, they just didn't know what to do. They were like, what's going on here? What the heck? Wait a minute. They really thought that my brother was either white or I don't know. I guess, because he did it. He looked whiter than most white people. And when they saw me, and it was just kind of the parents were caught off guard, and and she was kind of a little embarrassed, and my brother, he ended up breaking up with her, like, if you can't accept all of my family, it ain't gonna work, so. And but that was one of the things, and my brother at that moment when he saw the reaction, that was the first time he had ever seen the difference. And I told him, I said, this is what I deal with. And he's just like, but you don't care. I was like, yeah, because it's their loss not to know me, not mine.
My man. Fucking
Well
love
said.
that.
Well
I
said.
love that. I love that. And I'm happy to know you, and I know Nate is too.
Oh yeah. Well, you guys are all great guys. You guys are, I probably would have had a lot of fun and a lot of mischief with you guys.
Now, Wally differently says some crazy shit about you.
Oh,
Yeah,
Wally.
you know me. Always
Yeah,
running my mouth.
yeah,
They do it to me
Oh,
too. They do it to me too
Love
when
it.
I'm not around. It's just,
well,
it's okay.
But seriously, Jose, I appreciate you sharing that. I really do, because that's
No, and it's okay.
important
It's good.
information.
I think that people he need to hear it. It's unfortunate.
It is.
It's one of those things where people should be able to speak your mind, and you don't have to. We need to learn to agree to disagree now. These days, we don't do that anymore.
If we don't figure that
I
out,
agree.
it's gonna get so much worse.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Tim, learn to agree with me.
Is that the moral of the story?
But it was funny.
I'm really trying. Really trying. You just gotta help me out, buddy.
Yeah, gotta throw him an olive branch. Give him a little something. Give him something to work with there.
He keeps coming back. I mean, there's got to be something working.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So one
Give me
thing
something
that
to agree with, Chet.
I did want to
Give me something to agree with.
one thing I did want to point out about both the attacks, because the vehicles were newer and they were electric, they both vehicles, because correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was the new Ford F-150 that is electric that
That's what I
the
heard,
guy
yeah.
in New Orleans was driving, and it was the Tesla truck. Both of those all of the components that are in that electric vehicle, it's literally a data mine of intelligence as far as how they were driving, when they were driving, and then also at the charging stations, there was a lot of data collected. Both individuals they could track very easily because of the charging stations. Now this is after the fact, right? But also in Vegas, they use facial recognition to track in the cameras that are involved with the Las Vegas Strip and all that. They used all that intelligence to backtrack and figure out exactly what happened. And also, I'm sure they used that to identify the person in the vehicle that they couldn't identify because he was burned so badly. But I think from all that intelligence that they gathered, they were able to basically know without confirming that it was this individual, and then had to confirm through DNA and body markings, i.e. tattoos. But one thing that I thought was funny, and I'd like you guys to comment on it, was that the chief of police in his briefing said basically like Elon Musk was very helpful, and I'm sure he meant Tesla. I don't think that anybody talked directly to Elon Musk. However, he mentioned Elon Musk and he was very helpful, and he said that all of the information that they needed was given to them almost immediately. And as a consumer, how does that make you feel? Like, again, it came off of his tongue like it was a matter of factly like, oh, somebody wanted to help the local law enforcement out, and they gave me everything about this individual and that specific vehicle that the individual was driving. And like on first hearing it, I'm like, the way he states it, it sounds like there's some rights that are violated there as not only as a consumer, but like just things out there like, ooh, Uncle Sam's always listening, and like I have to be careful what I say because again, a data collection mine, which is the cyber truck. So having heard that, and again, all the information, you sit down in that vehicle. I don't know if you guys have looked at reviews about, the Cybertruck or Tesla vehicles in general, but like literally you get in and sit down, it'll tell you how much you weigh in the seat. Like it's a data mine of intelligence and information. And for somebody to just willy-nilly give that away. Now I'm assuming again the briefing or the question was there was a terrorist attack potentially with this vehicle. Here's the VIN number. Here's this. What information can you give us? And then, because of whether we want to call it wasn't a violation of a Patriot Act or anything like that because it was a terrorist or thought to be a terrorist activity on American soil. So some of that information was able to be given. But how do you guys as consumers feel about all of that information? All of that stuff is readily accessible, and it seemed like, as the police chief stated, the producer of that product was willing to give up all of that information.
So I have a couple of different thoughts about it. First of all, I think and I'll answer your question, but the guy talking about Elon Musk at the press conference was disgusting attempt at kissing the ass of the perceived like next king of the world. That was what they're doing, and it makes me sick to my stomach.
The Doge, man,
like
put some respect on the Doge.
To kiss Elon Musk's ass, and it's unnecessary because anybody should do that. I think that. Well, I understand what you're saying. if that vehicle is engaged in a attempt at a terroristic attack, it loses the right of privacy, right? You then should be able to, in a legal manner, obtain any and all data from that. Now, it should launch into a conversation about whether you want to drive a vehicle that takes that much data on you. That's a different story. But I think that if you do and you engage in an act like that, then you have to understand they're going to either, whether they do it immediately or whether you go through the checking the boxes of getting a court order, you're going to get that data. It's going to happen immediately, and they're going to use that to pursue their investigation. And I don't really have a problem with that. I think that comes with the territory. You carry around one of these. I mean, again, they're gonna harvest your data. They're harvesting your data. If you do something wrong, they're going to use that to form a case against you. If you don't know that in today's day and age, again, I don't know what to tell you. We can have a conversation about whether it's right or wrong, but it is the world we live in, unfortunately. And if again you perform a terroristic attack, in my eyes, I mean they're gonna take that immediately, and I don't really have a problem with it.
In the 1980s, what I'm about to say would be a Republican statement. I guess I'm a Republican from the 1980s. I don't plan on killing innocent people. And I enjoy the protections that come from being an American citizen. So if they want to take my data for whatever reason, I'm not concerned. I
didn't say that. I didn't say that.
No, Wally, you didn't say that. You didn't say that. I'm speaking for myself. I'm not concerned. Like, I don't plan on killing innocent people. And we're a free country. I love this country for this reason. Like, I can have my things that I like to do that are different from others. As long as I don't kill somebody for no reason, I'm okay.
Yeah. Do you have you don't have an issue with any of the data being collected? Like for instance, your biometrics. I mean, mine are already out there, but and again, to put that into another category, I just went through the airport. I never once showed my boarding pass. I got on. I didn't have to show my boarding pass to get through security.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, and I'm sure the database, I had to show an ID and they take a picture to collect my biometrics. And I'm sure my name is on a manifest and it's AI, right? It automatically tells you whether I am on a manifest to get on a plane to go through security. I'm sure it does that. But I didn't have to produce a boarding pass or I didn't scan anything till I got to the gate. So, I mean, and again, that gate right there, my biometrics are now in the system. So I'm sure that system is tied. It is tied to Homeland Security. It goes into the federal database, CIA database. So
I think unless I agree with Wally, unless you're willing to live like some kind of Jack Reacher Spartan existence where you're totally off grid.
Is that what you said, Wally?
You're going to be.
That's exactly what I was getting at. Yep.
You're going to be. Your data is going to be mined. That's just that is the world we live in. The question I'm asking is, who is the one who's declaring something a terrorist or someone a terrorist? Because we have examples over the past 4 years of people like, loving Catholic fathers who are praying outside abortion clinics who are placed on terrorist watch lists. And so I'm a little concerned about who is the one who is, can we get a sign off in this, Judge? What's wrong? He's a terrorist. I mean, it's not hard to make a case that someone is on the terrorist watch list, but whether that is indicative of true terrorist activity or just weaponizing government agencies for the end of whoever's in power. I think that's another danger of what can happen with these, definition slide. What's a terrorist? Who's a terrorist? What does that look like?
I think it does happen. It's not what could happen. I think it happens pretty regularly.
Yeah, it happens all the time. The government will weaponize when they feel it's in their best interest, and unfortunately, it's, and certain people disappear, certain people, hang themselves because, the wrong people, some people don't want that information out, so it's out there, and it's, but I again, do I live looking over my shoulder all the time, or do I just live and enjoy my life, knowing that I have no one has anything to fear for me, so I'm just gonna live.
Oh,
So
man. Good. And you should live the best life you can. Take care of your grandkids, take care of your kids. That's wonderful stuff.
We all should. Um,
We all should.
Also, to go back to Wally's statement about the Sean Ryan show and the manifesto, if you guys haven't or you don't ever watch Sean Ryan, I definitely suggest you check out his podcast. The specific episode, I sent it to you guys on our group chat, but Sean Ryan show with Sarah Adams. She's a former, I think she's current. She's a current CIA operative um, to some capacity. She might just be a liaison now, but she was involved in a lot of things in the Middle East as far as the CIA operations are concerned. It was a very good podcast, and she basically in detail talked about the things that we are missing as far as data collection, intelligence collection specifically, and how we're dissecting that, whether it's because, and it is a human thing, right? Humans have to process the intelligence and interpret it. And the interpretation of that is what can be the difficult part and the foggy part. And to get people to agree on the interpretation is another story in itself, which becomes political. But she basically didn't predict, but is has been saying for close to a year now that all these terrorist activities that have been happening are from small little sleeper cells that are already here, whether they were born here, born and bred here, and got into the country somehow through our porous borders, but they are here, and there is actions that are going to happen from this point on, and what we do to prevent them is just having to, again, listen to the intelligence and act on it because it's already out there. And she talks about all this stuff, and it's very poignant and direct. And she also gives Sean Ryan, and it's on his website. It's basically a situation report of all activities that she is aware of. It can be in a country, it can be here in America, but situation reports and as far as hostile acts and hostile activities. It's basically what we would do if we were overseas. We get briefed on it daily.
Yeah.
It's very, very cool to have somebody do that because it's unclassified data. So she's not breaching any information. But if you guys get a chance, you should check it out. Definitely.
Hey, I got to take off, guys.
Oh, me too.
See you later.
So, that got weird. That happened
Good
fast.
meeting you, Jose.
hey, nice meeting you, Tim.
We'll
All
see you,
So
Tim.
we'll
see ya.
see you again.
Nate Mully, for 2 minutes. I gotta tell you something. Well, actually, Nate, more importantly.
You can tell Jose too. He's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, Jose is fine. So, Nate, I was telling you this group.
Or do you want this recorded?
No.
Well, we're recording right now. So let me. Are you?
That
You
shit off.
need to get off. You need to, or does everybody need to get off?
I should. It's past midnight.
No, I mean, Wally can hear it and Jose can hear it, but you don't